All right, Hector. Hector, you. Good morning, Hector Olivares, environmental justice. This is a great opportunity. We're all here from Catholic Charities. I'm very excited to be here for this environmental justice virtual symposium, and I'm going to hand it over to our program manager, Hector Olivares.
Hello, everyone. Again, as Martha stated, Hector Olivares, I'm the program manager for Catholic Charities Diocese Stockton for the Environmental Justice Program. And again, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. We're still letting people in, so I'd like you all to, at this time, go ahead and type your name and organization if you're from an organization in the chat. Or if you are a citizen, just type your city in. Where you coming from? Where are you logging in from? Also, I'd like you to state which native lands you are currently residing on. For those who don't know yet, there's a link going to be provided in the chat. You guys can check for yourselves. I am currently on Miwok Native Lands. So go ahead and type your native lands in the chat on which area you're at and use the link, if you don't know, to go ahead and find out. I think that's very important that we acknowledge that we are in occupied lands and
All right, Tonga. Woohoo!
and our ancestors who came before us. Okay, so we have Roberto who provides Spanish interpretation for those who are listening in Spanish. For those who prefer English, please go to the bottom of your screen where it says interpretation and choose English, and make sure you also choose mute original audio, or you'll be hearing both Spanish and English at the same time. So that's going to be a little confusing. So again, the interpretation screen, a little globe right there, icon at the bottom. Choose your language and then mute original audio. Now Roberto is going to provide the same information in Spanish. Go ahead, Roberto.
Aquí estamos. Está explicando nuevamente lo que acabo de explicar, de que para poder elegir el idioma tienen que
Hola, Carlos. Hola, Ilia. Hola, Justina.
¿Perdón?
Keep those names coming in. I see Justina Caras.
Okay.
She and her. And don't be afraid to put your pronouns in.
Bueno, ustedes pueden escuchar eso.
Sorry, can you see him now?
Hola, Mark. Hi, Mark.
En este momento estamos viendo al señor Medina que habla en tema de signos.
Can you see him now, Douglas?
Oluchi Nijokyu. Hola.
Douglas, can you see him?
So just keep those names coming in. We have 22 in the room. Let's see, Esther Conrad. Thank you, Esther, for joining us. Mulifema Olon Land. Thank you. Aloni. Puchin.
And just a little housekeeping. Please mute yourself. Great. And if you have questions, either raise your hand using the raised hand icon on Zoom, or feel free to type the question in the chat. We have staff members that are monitoring the chat, and they'll either call on you to speak your question yourself, or they can read the question for you. And one more time, please make sure you go to the language icon, the interpretation icon at the bottom. Click which language you want. You have English or Spanish. And make sure that you go ahead and mute original audio. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to start this event with an introduction of the Environmental Justice team. I have Jonathan Pruitt. He's my program coordinator for the San Joaquin office. And he's going to quickly turn on his camera, say wave to the camera. He's doing...
Jonathan is doing Jonathan. He's taking care of business, so we're not going to be able to do that. Jonathan, you want to turn around and say hi to everyone? They're looking for you. There he is.
Okay.
All right. And then we have Martha Armas Kelly, and she's the program coordinator for Stanislaus' office. Martha?
I'm right here, everyone.
Okay. And then we also have Melissa Vargas. She's our program specialist for San Joaquin office. Melissa? And then last but not least, we have Evelyn Vega. She's our newest program specialist for the Stanislaus office. Melissa? Oh, I'm sorry, Evelyn?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.
que es la
Okay,
última que
so
está unida al grupo.
thank you guys, and thank you so much for all the work you're doing on to put this together. So for today, we have 3 separate panels set up discussing environmental justice topics. When my EJ team was working putting
Tenemos
together this event
varios
and reaching out to the
temas que tratar
speakers, we wanted to ensure this event is
queremos
heavy
asegurar,
on audience participation. So we'd like to encourage you to ask questions of the panel to help clarify any topic they covered. Again, this is more of an
queremos que
informal
escuchen lo que
discussion,
tienen que
and we
decir
set up that way on purpose. That way we can get you guys to
los,
really ask questions
los
and really be part of
panelistas, y
this.
cuando no entiendan algo,
And again, I'd like to remind you all that we will be having 4 raffles today. For those of you
vamos
who
a
are
tener
attending,
4
you must
rifas
attend.
para los que
Be
están para
on.
los
Each
asistentes.
prize is going to be a
Los
$50
premios
gift card. So a total of 4 $50
van a
gift
ser
cards. Yay, money.
tarjetas de regalo.
Okay. So again, thanks for attending. And now
Muchas
I'd like to
gracias por
turn it
asistir.
over
Y
to
ahora me gustaría
Marta
pasarlo a
Armas Kelly.
Marta para que empieces tu presentación.
With the good morning. Am I open?
Mhm.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. Good morning. With the understanding that we are on native land, we need to recognize
quiero que
and give
sepa-
honor where
quiero que
honor is
estamos
due.
en
Today we
tierras
are
nativas.
joined by some awesome brothers here and Merced.
Tenemos a
We're
muchos
here
hermanos
at
aquí.
1666 North N Street and at the Vault. This is a community co-op that has allowed us to have the space for being here. And Waylon Coates.
Hello.
Waylon is going to be here to do a little bit of a education on land acknowledgement and also a prayer. And we have our elder here and
Albert.
Gilbert, and we'll go ahead and hand it over to you. And if you want to move it down so they can see what you're actually doing, let me move
Ellos van a explicar qué hacen con esto de las tierras nativas de las
Hello,
organizaciones.
everybody. Thanks for coming. My name is Waylon. I'm the cultural resource manager for the Chicken Ranch tribe up in Tuolumne County. I'm from Yosemite. My tribe is the Southern Sierra Miwok. I'm from the Anwanichi people. I'm right there in Yosemite Valley. To my right here is one of our elders, Gilly Bearhart. He's Yaqui and Apache, and he's representing today Apache Nations of California, also as well as United Tribes of California, and he's going to do our blessing today before we get started here. It's culturally appropriate for us to take heed in our elders, and so anytime we have an elder come up, we pass them to give their knowledge on to us as younger people. So I'll let him go ahead and take it over.
Hello, beautiful people, my native people. I am Gilly Bearhart, and I am of the Yaqui and Apache people of California, also representing the UTOC, the United Tribes of California. And I'm so happy to be here to do the opening prayer and to wish you all the best, and wish your families, your children, your loved ones, your aunties, your uncles, your grandparents, all of our beautiful native people that sit on this California territory in this land. And it's a great time and a great day to be alive. We're thriving as native people. We happen to be born on this beautiful soil of California. And we're just so grateful and thankful for all the beauty and all the good things that we get to experience as Indigenous people. And with that, I just wanted to say a little prayer and to kind of send some of this cedar out to all of you, and to bless you, and to bless your homes, to bless your resources, to bless your families, and to bless your jobs, and that you expand and you grow, and that you get promotions, and that all good things are given to you. And with that, we love you. We want to express our gratitude for each and every one of you on Indian land or native land, whichever word you like to use. And so with that, we ask the great creator. The creator is known to several tribes by many different names. He's known as to the Apaches as Usan, and the Yaquis as Lios, and to the Lakota as Wankantanka. And so however your tribe refers to the Great Spirit, that's how we refer to him or her. I like to think that there's also a female version of the male expression of God. So with that, we want to ask the creator that that spirit is in your home and in your life and working abundantly and fluently. And we ask that every one of you is blessed, and we ask that every one of you is touched, and that you grow and that you connect with that higher power and that you feel that Native spirit awakening in you. And God bless you all. And we send out that strong Native energy to you all and ask that you feel that you take a moment and think about your Indigenous, the spirit that lives in you, connect with it, represent it to the fullest in all beauty. And we want to thank Martha Armis for the opportunity and Waylon Coates for the opportunity to sit here with all of you and to discuss the topics that we're going to discuss today. God bless you all, and have a beautiful, wonderful day. Aho.
Aho. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. So right now I'm going to go ahead and give the floor to our wonderful program specialist in San Joaquin Valley. We have Melissa. Take it away, Melissa.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us this Thursday morning. My name is Melissa Vargas, and I'm a program specialist for San Joaquin County with Catholic Charities. And today we have an amazing panel on environmental justice in the Central Valley, where we'll be talking about what organizations across the valley are doing to address the ongoing climate crisis and discuss environmental justice in their own community. Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi this morning, but I'll just resume where I left off. So really our goal is just that you are able to, take away a new idea or strategy that you can apply in your own work. So here's the format of our panel today, just to give you an idea of what to expect. So I'll get us started with introductions, then each panelist will have the opportunity to tell a little bit about themselves and what they do. And then I'll kick off the conversation asking questions that draw out some of the themes that we're thinking about today. And then we'll open up the floor to give you the opportunity to ask any questions. But at any time during this panel, please feel free to either raise your hand or drop your question in the chat. All of our staff will be monitoring the chat, so we'll be sure to get to it. And I do first want to thank our panelists for being here. I know it's a busy time for everyone, so just really want to extend our gratitude. So with that being said, today with us, we have Gustavo Aguirre Jr. from the Central California Environmental Justice Network. He is the Kern County Coordinator. Marcel Woodruff is an organizer with Faith in the Valley. And Barbara Barrigan Barria is the Executive Director of Restore the Delta here in our hometown of Stockton. And unfortunately, Ray Leon was unable to join us today. So we'll get started with these three panelists. If you want to go ahead and give a little bit of background and talk about what you do, we can go ahead and get started with Gustavo.
Yes, how's it going, everyone? Good morning. Bless you all. Muy buenos días a todos. My name is Gustavo Aguirre Jr., and like Melissa stated, I'm the coordinator for Central California Environmental Justice Network, or CCJN, down here at the Bakersfield, Kern County office. And if you never heard of CCJN before, we're a relatively small environmental justice organization. We're headquartered out of Fresno, but we have folks in Tulare County, Kings County, and Kern County as well. And we focus on really community-driven initiatives that focus on environmental injustices. So in these communities, mostly rural communities, we deal with a lot of oil and gas development, with agricultural and pesticide usage, and we focus on grassroots community organizing. So we've participated in the past with participatory research, doing community-based science research, in the means to use that for advocacy reasons. So a pleasure to be here. Thank you all so much.
All right, perfect. And then we can go ahead and have Barbara introduce herself and what she does.
Thank you, Melissa, and greetings to everyone. And thank you for the beautiful blessing at the beginning of this event. Very grateful. Barbara Barrigan-Barria, I'm Executive Director for Restore the Delta. We have been in operation for 16 years. Most people know us as being the people who were opposed to the twin tunnels, but what people don't know is the extensive amount of environmental justice work that we have done here, particularly over the last 8 years. Restore the Delta was the first group in Stockton to actually quantify through data and identify the extensive environmental justice community. 1/3 of Stockton lives at roughly the bottom 95 percentile for environmental health. We identified this community and wrote about it extensively in testimony, legal testimony we presented in 2016 to the State Water Resources Control Board. And from there, we went on to write several reports that really have to do with how the Delta is managed for this extensive environmental justice community, all the environmental justice communities in the Delta, and how water is managed for environmental justice communities across California. We have a team of climate water advocates that we have spent the last year training, who are doing extensive water quality testing work around harmful algal blooms in the Delta. This same group, which we are expanding next year, is really going to be leading the charge on the flood threat. South Stockton and San Joaquin County are the most vulnerable places for flood in California, as shown by state climate change modeling, but yet as across the United States, our disadvantaged community has been housed in floodplains that are not fully protected. So flood management is actually a really important issue to us. And with good flood management really comes the opportunity for restoring groundwater systems across the whole San Joaquin Valley watershed, because where you capture floodwaters, you have the chance to actually restore groundwater systems. So that's a little bit of kind of what we're working on. We're putting our policy work and the research that we've done into practice. And just the last thing I want to add is, besides focusing on local issues, because we are a statewide organization, we work in partnership on Delta management issues with legal tribes that have their historic roots tied to the Delta. We work with Sheila Springs Miwok, Wilton Rancheria Miwok. We work with the Yokuts people from the Klamath, the Winneman Wintu. They're part of our legal testimony. They're part of our strategies. They're part of our work. And we also work with groundwater groups in the San Joaquin Valley, because the same people who are taking the water and killing the salmon are leaving us with the pollution in the Delta, are not getting the drinking water to those communities that need that drinking water in the San Joaquin Valley. So our main objective going forward the next 2 years is to make sure that the environmental justice communities in the interior of California, from the top to the bottom of the state, are united.
Porque se necesita hacer una renovación de la política sobre el agua en todo el estado.
Thank you so much, Barbara. We'll pass it over to Marcel, and thankfully, Ray was able to join us today. So thank you for being here, Ray. We'll pass it over to you after Marcel.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Ray made it. I'm glad. Well, my name is Marcel Woodruff, he, him, his, and I work with Faith in the Valley, and I am located in Fresno on Yokuts land. So Faith in the Valley is a grassroots, community-led organization that partners with faith-based institutions for social change and transformation and systemic reimagination. We began working in environmental justice issues about 4 years ago with young people. So young people within Southwest Fresno, where I reside at, had learned that people in their neighborhood live 22 years less than people in the adjacent neighborhood, adjacent side of town, in a more affluent space. And they wanted to understand why. And so what they did was they actually looked toward air quality. So they developed a project, and they measured air quality within their area, and they learned that the air quality in their area was 8 times worse than that in the more affluent areas. And they designed a grassroots project where they work with CCEJ, and we have NIAMEAN. They work with faith-based institutions, and they work with mainly students on campuses to build out a monitoring system using Purple Airs. This is an air pollution monitoring system. and they built an app. And what we've been doing for the last 4 years is pushing the narrative that air quality has to be aggregated. What it looks like on one side of town doesn't mean it's the same on the other side of town. And so we have young people and faith-based groups leading this effort to give people air quality in real time and designing programs and solutions to actually improve the air quality in one of the worst spaces for air quality in the nation.
Eso, porque Fresno es uno de los lugares peores de contaminación en la nación.
Thank you so much, Marcel. And finally, we have Ray Leon, the Executive Director of the LEAP Institute.
Buenas tardes, everybody. Ray Leon here. Joining you from Huron.
We can't hear you, Ray. I'm not sure if it's just myself. Can you please switch to English and mute original audio? There should be an interpretation icon.
All right. Yeah, I didn't know that happened there.
Thank you.
Greetings to everybody. Buenas tardes. Ray Leon, Executive Director of the LEAP Institute, and joining you from Huron, California, the heart of the valley, here on the west side. Five. As all you know, the air quality is some of the worst here in our region, and it's been that way for quite a while. I started doing this work in 2003, engaging all the counties in the region to the Latino Environmental Health Project, and we held a summit that shared the data that we were able to capture from over 300 families throughout the region. And also we shared the recommendations we had in terms of policy and otherwise, which basically set out the path of the next 5 years of work in air quality in the San Joaquin Valley. And one of those recommendations was putting an air quality monitor on the west side. This was during the time when I just engaged the air quality issue. And one thing that was really interesting to me is that I saw a map that showed that all the air it was polluted on the east side, but it was clean on the west side. And having grown up in Huron, I knew that wasn't the case. Later, I would find the map and learn of all the air quality monitors that existed, and notice that when you overlaid the maps, all the air quality monitors were where the air was supposedly contaminated on the east side, and there were no air quality monitors on the west side. So, of course, one of the first things that we were able to do that I worked on was putting the first air quality monitor on the west side, and it currently still that station building in the Huron Middle School. Unfortunately, it's only PM 2.5, but I think it's good enough. It's had many issues, and very appreciative that Luis Olmedo from Comité Cívico, the pioneer of the air quality monitors, and the program that I currently participate in as was able to make the push with our support to make that happen. And now we are pounding the ground with air quality monitors, getting some more data. Really interesting and really fun, and I like the fact that we're able to engage local folks from the community in having a better science to increase broader advocacy support to improve the quality of air. But in the early 2000s, I'll tell you,
contar con personas que nos están ayudando a enfrentar este problema.
Plans, adding a doctor to their district, and by far, that struggle is not over. Accountability and advocacy on the board, regardless. Also, we developed the Environmental Justice Advisory Committee at the cannot go without the watchdogging and the advocacy and the continuous leadership development to make sure that the representatives within that committee are actually environmental justice. But you know,
para pedir justicia sobre algo, pero no aclaró qué tipo de justicia está pidiendo.
I've been organizing for quite a while, and it's always been around public health.
Todos los problemas siempre han sido sobre la salud pública.
Just fighting pollution, but also creating the opportunities for economic justice while we work on climate and environmental justice.
Que haya una justicia.
Receive a grant to develop
para desarrollar
some pretty interesting things. One of them is
temas muy interesantes.
LEAP smart lights, which basically is a non-gridded lighting system that also has the ability to provide Wi-Fi, and we intend to put air quality monitor.
Por ejemplo, alumbrado público que haya acceso a la internet.
We can now start getting a granular
gratis.
Acquisition of what's happening in different neighborhoods. And that's something that unfolding because to make that happen, we will be support to employ folks from the local community to actually
organizando gente de la comunidad.
These LEAP smart lights. We're taking it further with what we call we've given it a shot in the arm, and we've given we're evolving it to something much bigger called mobile renewable
con un pequeño esfuerzo, pero se ha ampliado.
Where now it's on the trailer, it unfolds a canopy of solar, and it also can provide an enclosed space for cooling and improved air quality.
Hablando ahora de vivienda, de que están proporcionando vivienda a personas que están obviamente
forest fires, and the communities are dealing with that. You know, it's almost like a little cooling and air quality.
So
you know, let's fight the pollution, but let's build the technologies. Let's put them together in the way that we can build and empower the community
pero el Señor se va
provide the solution. So we're creating a solution. We should be solving at least 3 problems, 5 problems. You know, because if you're not, you might be creating a problem. You know, we've seen that with mainstream environmental organizations. I got one story. It may be too long. I should probably just cut it off now.
Esto es un problema que tienen todas las organizaciones que obviamente
we got to be mindful of environmental justice, because it's not just about the environment. You know, we're about the people, making sure they're healthy. Of course, also the environment, but everything else. Inputs and outputs. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone, for those wonderful introductions. We're now going to get into our questions, and this is going to be like an open discussion, so please feel free to chime in at any point. So as many of us know, environmental justice is especially concerned with how environmental issues or concerns disproportionately impact communities of color and low to moderate income communities. Can you talk a little bit about these communities in the areas we serve across the Valley? I know many of you have already discussed what kind of issues they're experiencing, such as, you know, air quality being a significant issue. Can you expand, or have you identified other needs for environmental justice in the areas we serve across the Valley?
¿Pueden ustedes hablar sobre estos grupos humanos en las áreas en las que sirven? ¿Qué tipo de problemas están experimentando? Además, ¿dónde ven necesidades de impacto?
Yeah, I think one thing that's really important for people to realize is that where you have one environmental justice problem, you have 6, you have 7, you have 12. You know, we're really struggling in the Delta and the urban Delta with harmful algal blooms, which are loaded with cyanobacteria. We had 25 reported incidents this year. It kills pets, it could kill preschoolers, it could cause nerve damage in people. Those toxic waters can harm the unhoused who are camped along our waterways throughout the valley. But what people don't realize is that bacteria travels 7 miles by air. It is a major air pollution source that we are working through the AB 617 process to make sure is monitored. So you start with one environmental problem. So we haven't regulated our discharge. We don't have enough flow moving through our rivers during drought periods. And then it evolves into an air pollution problem. And then take it a step further in terms of the flood threat, which is very much an environmental justice issue, you know, from Fresno all the way down to Stockton. The same communities that are suffering from toxic dumping, contaminated groundwater, polluted surface waters, extensive air pollution. Our AB 617 community lives with extensive air pollution from the Port of Stockton that we're working to make sure is mitigated and cleaned up. Those are the same communities that were redlined. First we removed all the indigenous people through a genocide, which was actually launched from McKinley Park in Stockton in the 1860s. And then we redlined all these communities. We put our industrial sites into these communities historically through the practices of redlining over 150 years. We disinvested money into these communities, and now you have too many leaders who think everybody is supposed to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, while we leave them living in floodplains. Across America, communities that are flooded don't recover well. So we have a lot of work to do. And I'll stop there.
So, the Central Valley is, shaped like this bowl. So you have, pollution that comes in from the north, from the south, even across the Pacific, and we're in this high pressure system. So when it gets here, it stays here, and it's sort of stuck, and we hope for wind. But in the areas that I work in, I guess as what Barbara's talking about, you have like historical vicissitudes or wrongdoings, or just kind of policies that have created these arenas where you have ag, you have industry, and you have highway that just contain these marginalized communities. So the pollution on them is compounded. And so in the midst of having just economic disparity, you also have like geographic and environmental racism and injustice, right? And so one of the things that we also see with air pollution is this thing called the heat island effect, where when you go into some areas in Fresno, it's literally hotter than other areas because of lack of vegetation, lack of green space, and increased levels of pollution. And so that has other health risks and affects alongside of the pollution that makes these spaces just unbearable and unlivable for a lot of people. So we try to deal with every element of that, identifying we do have to understand how meteorology works so we can develop systems to reduce pollution, understanding we need vegetation and green space in order to reduce the heat island effect, and while also empowering and doing it with the people, because they're the ones who live with the pain and they know where it hurts.
Yeah, I would like to just really echo Barbara and Marcel's comments. They were really spot on. And I think something that we for sure see when we go into this case, for example, environmental justice communities or organizations, when we go into these communities, oftentimes we go with these set goals and programs and protocols, right? And we get there and it's, like Barbara said, it's a multi-layer, just oftentimes generational kind of effect that has happened in these communities, right? From the disinvestment in these communities, from the lack of proper land use practices, right? So there's land use practices that are unfavorable, right? And oftentimes they're in communities of color, in low income communities. For example, you could pull up any data software like Calum Virus Screen, and you start looking at all the different indicators, right? Language isolation, education attainment, and it really if you look at the system we operate under, this oppressive really system, right? A lot of us participate in AB 617. Just that process alone is mind-blowing, right? It really shows how money ultimately influences potential, and community benefits, right? So even the system we operate under, like the brother Ray said earlier, oftentimes larger organizations are the ones that get the most resources, right? But oftentimes are doing the least amount of work in these communities that are where it's really meaningful, right? Where you really create a cultural change, you create a narrative change, and the systems change that oftentimes is needed, right? So oftentimes when we go into these communities, we go with maybe an idea, but we leave with a lot more responsibility and homework than oftentimes us as organizations could handle, right? But it's really the resources that we're able to put together and the advocacy that comes from it that is really moving, right? So yeah, it is a multi-layer kind of what should we expect going into these communities, and just doing the best of our abilities, knowing our limitations and knowing all our expertise, right? So I think that's something that oftentimes is not spoken on as much, but is very much something that we encounter.
Thank you so much for those amazing responses. I myself am taking notes of all the powerful statements you're making. I do want to go to some of the questions that we have. So the first question we received was, how can we get young people interested and or involved in environmental justice issues?
So I'll jump in on that. So my team is a youth team. And I can't tell you how, but I'll tell you kind of what the story was. My background is in computer science, and I was teaching young people how to code. So they make a little bit of money on the side, making websites and apps. And then came the challenge. Okay, you guys have this vocation, this skill set. What are you going to do to improve your community? And pollution and environmental injustice was already on their mind because they live with it. So their natural kind of inclination was to say, okay, we want to do something to improve our environment. So I think the way that I got young people on board was you empowered a group of them, stimulate their imagination. And then the wonderful thing about working with young people is when you get one, you get 10, right? So you get this one young guy, he's doing this great work, and he's going to get his friends and his friends and his friends. And the program got bigger than I could even manage. So I think that just really investing in young people, having it being central to your strategy, having spaces to empower them, stimulate their imagination, and then just let them go and watch the magic flow.
I'd kind of like to jump on to what Marcel said, because one of our strategies has been to deliberately recruit university students and boomerangs from the disadvantaged communities that we are working to serve. We have worked hard to be able to give them meaningful internships. We are now actually hiring back into our staff young adults who we trained 10 years ago. And then, you know, especially for groups that are led by white people, I have to say that we made this our very deliberate strategy. California water is a particularly white industry and a particularly male industry. We are a majority minority organization now. We are 25% LGBTQ. And we have decided that as our senior staff members retire, we are building a really big bench by training people internally and externally, so that when we replace ourselves, it will be young professional people of color that represent this, the Delta, that become the guardians of the estuary, and that look like the community that they represent. It's our commitment.
Youth, working with youth is amazing. I think getting them to the table is not the hard thing. I think keeping them engaged is one of the most, I think, engaging tasks of working with youth. But I mean, working with partners, I think, has been something that has been very promising, right? We're here in Kern County. Years ago, we developed and deployed the citizen science cohort, and it mirrored what the pioneers of community air monitoring, Mrs. Margaret, Luis Olmedo, and other folks have done here in California, right? And it's create like this system of like democratizing data, right? Oftentimes government tells us, oh, the experts are in Sacramento, the experts are here or there, right? And oftentimes the experts are really the folks that live in these communities, right? So it's really decolonizing that like aspect of like only government officials are the experts, and only because they have certain trainings can they determine whether, you know, you're living in pollution or not, right? And so we created the citizen science cohorts where we have pesticide experts, oil and gas experts, air monitoring experts come and, you know, teach us, quote unquote, their ways, right, of how to properly, you know, QA, QC, do things, right? And so we use that, and it really has created a real kind of intergenerational approach to organizing. So we get residents that are we work with a lot of farm working communities that will come and will say, bring a pesticide, right? And then they will bring their children along with them, oftentimes high school, middle school, or college youth. and then they would get into like more air monitoring, right? And so it's really like this intergenerational approach of how we keep them engaged and how we keep them involved. And it's not perfect, but it's somewhat have worked for us, right? And then again, working with other partners that are solely, kind of focused on youth organizing, that has also been very helpful and very supportive. So it was really creating this like sense of like the youth that work with us and have worked alongside us, like they're owners of their work, right? They really create this sense of ownership and they're willing to take that responsibility on. And with youth, we've been able to do quite a bit of stuff along with like cleaning up of rivers in Fresno, cleanup sites. And so it's been very rewarding working with youth, but very challenging. Awesome.
I'd like to give it a shot of answering that question, or at least sharing some thoughts. We have public schools, and they're supposed to be democratically led.
Se supone que debería ser una democracia.
So, I think part of it is exposing the kids, and them learning what the basics of environment and climate. Right, like the carbon cycle, water cycle. I think it's more impactful when they learn it hands-on. So I just came back from DC. I was at a conference. And I met up with a brother from Arizona, New Mexico actually, and he's a coordinator, community garden coordinator at the school. So he's engaging kids, and he's also an environmental justice leader. So kids are getting an EJ education. They're getting it hands-on. Growing organic food and learning about the value of that. So let's start there. We got these institutions. They're our institutions, right? Outside, after school, we have after school programs, and they learn about advocacy. They learn about communicating with their let's start the future elected officials trainings in justice early on.
Deberíamos educar a los políticos sobre.
And so the other thing is right now we started a program called Coatl program. Coatl means
tenemos un programa que se llama Coates.
Skin, so it's a notion of rebirth, a renewal.
Es una forma de renacer.
We are taking farm worker families to state parks, coastal parks.
Llevamos a los parques estatales.
Farm worker families, if you are familiar, never get that opportunity.
Porque muchas familias que no tienen esa oportunidad de visitar parques nacionales.
I was like 11, 12 years old, and that was only because I was in the Boy Scouts.
Yo fui
porque Boy Scout troop of like 20 little campesino kids in the bus.
Pero los hijos de campesinos no tienen
a bunch of white stuff. Hey, Lou, what's that? What's that? It's no, stop. No. Hey, calm down. We'll get there soon. You'll get there soon. They made us hike through 8 miles of snow. Afterwards, forget snow. That was fun. For us kids, we learned so much. We should have that available for our kids, because that exposure is part of what we're fighting for, right? And not just the forest on the outside, but the building of the forest on the inside, in the barrio.
No estamos realmente arreglándoles el exterior, sino que también el interior.
Plant those trees, and let's get kids involved. Because it's a story.
Involucrar a los niños.
Carbon sequestration. There's a story of Sister Barbara mentioned redlining. The big trees. Where are all the big trees at? Why only over there, right? Let's have those conversations. So there's a lot of ways you could get at it. But let's use our public institutions to be.
¿Por qué los grandes árboles, los big trees, están allí y no están en otro lado? Se refiere a que no ha habido
Thank you again. I'm going to
no se han
go to
protegido
the
las
chat
cosas
now. We have a question from Father Emmett from San Diego, who says, I'm impressed with your research and advocacy work. Do you work with parish communities directly?
Que ha trabajado con las parroquias.
I worked for Catholic Charities about 15, 16 years ago, before we started Restore the Delta. We work with Faith in the Valley. We've worked over the years with Catholic Charities. We work with all religious groups. I've given tours to groups of rabbis from throughout California. We work with the Unitarian Church. The faith-based community is I believe and with tribal spiritual practices, I believe the faith-based community is the sister of the environmental justice movement. So.
Yeah, and just quickly down here in Kern County, we've definitely worked, especially during the pandemic. We partnered up with a lot of organizations and religious institutions to deliver, literally basic goods to communities, and so that has been very beneficial, particularly under these times of pandemic and hardship. So that's really been a blessing for us.
And I'm with Faith in the Valley, so by nature we work with faith-based groups. I think specifically with our work, faith-based groups, interfaith groups have been really critical in helping us identify our narrative, because as faith-based people, we understand ourselves as stewards of creation. And so that understanding ourselves as stewards and moving forward to take care of environments is important. But more like tangibly, what our faith-based groups did in Fresno was with our purple air monitoring system. They would buy one for their institution of faith, and they would also buy one for the community that was most impacted by poor air quality. And so there was a one-to-one match. And so our faith-based communities really led that initiative to get more air monitors in Fresno.
De los grupos de fe de comprar algo y comprar uno para ellos y comprar uno para compartirlo. Eso es una iniciativa que se hizo.
And our next question is, food justice is a large part of environmental justice. Are any of the panelists partnering with food justice orgs as a part of their work?
Si acaso la igualdad ante la
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
We just like to get the word out for other groups that do that work. For us, it's a capacity issue. We do write about food deserts because we have extensive food deserts in the environmental justice communities we represent, both urban and rural in the Delta. So we track it. And during COVID, we knew there were people that were hungry in the Delta rural towns. And so we worked with the Delta Protection Commission to get food deliveries to those rural towns when we heard what was happening. But I think that's the extent of it for us. We try to lift up the work other people do because there's no more hours.
Yeah, and that's something that, oftentimes in these farming communities, these people that taking and growing the organic products and vegetables, there's so much food insecurity in these communities, and there's a lot of hardships. Recently, CCJN started working more intentionally with like regenerative farming practices. And so how do we actually establish co-ops and bringing, that food that is beneficial, that is grown by the community into the communities, right? And so there's been a greater push at CCJN to really look at that more intentionally and learn from the experts here in the Valley that are already doing that, right? So again, it's uplifting those organizations that are already doing that, and then intentionally learning on how we could in one future be stewards to that as well.
Estamos realmente aquí.
I see Ray jumped on. He had some sage wisdom to give us. All right. So real quick with Faith in the Valley, we have what we've done is mainly empower community members who understand that there are food deserts and food inequities in their spaces, to connect them with community garden organizations to build community gardens. We connect them with our food banks. And another thing that we've done is aesthetics is a really important part of justice and environment. And so we've led sort of like revitalization efforts around like stores that were kind of unpleasant to see. And we'd paint them, we'd build fences and put mulch down. But then my cat is like really mad, I'm not putting them out right now. And then what we would do is we would actually advocate for more fair and adequate pricing in those stores. So one thing that happened was like a gallon of milk was like $5. And so we showed the store some love and said, hey, can you give us the love back, by making some fair prices for this environment.
Entonces lo que están haciendo con eso es que gana el dueño del negocio porque tiene una clientela y al mismo tiempo nosotros logramos lo que queremos hacer, que es que la...
We got some support to do a community composting system. So we're engaging with some businesses and residents to set up an advisory committee, finding out what businesses have some compost that they could provide. and we're bringing on board a master gardener to help us with that garden. And we just got some more support in building what we call community
abono para poder hacer granjas urbanas donde se puedan plantar alimentos.
And the process of building this to see how, you know, what other innovative or how we could innovate a system to ensure that folks don't go hungry. The other thing is that we have a fleet of electric vehicles. We got about 9 vehicles, and we're coming up with a program called SPOON, Senior Priority Nutrition Network. And the purpose for that is
de esa iniciativa tenemos varios vehículos en los cuales repartimos comida.
Vulnerable folks that don't want to come out because of COVID or, you know, a fear of infection.
Hay mucha gente que no quiere salir por lo de la pandemia, entonces les llevamos la comida hacia ellos.
The last thing, I know there's one more thing that I want to mention, but I can't remember it right now.
Hay una última cosa que quería mencionar, pero se me olvidó.
Thank you. So I'm going to go back to the chat. We have a question from Celestino. He asks, with the sinking of our Central Valley, Fresno, and Merced counties, floodplains will grow. How can we plan for this?
You know what? I'm sorry. I remember what I'm going to share. So we just got a funding. You know, I'm also the mayor of my city, my hometown. As an undocumented farm worker, orphan from Michoacán. And we're still here. But we just got funding for a plaza, which I would love to call the Plaza de los Braceros. But we'll see what happens. But in conversations with
Michoacán y de que el aumento de la población es de los inmigrantes. Y aquí lo que estamos haciendo es que vamos a empezar una nueva plaza que va a ser la Plaza de los Braceros.
You know, so in regards to the water, let me just jump into that one. Also wearing the mayor's hat, you know, at the city of Huron, we passed an ordinance and to make all new developments. Single-family homes come with a gray water system ready, meaning the water from the restroom sink, the shower, the washing machines, it goes to the trees. Because when it's a drought, you can't even.
Están haciendo ahora desde que los nuevos movimientos urbanos tienen casas que en las cuales todo el agua que desaguan de esa casa, como por ejemplo de la ducha y de todas esas cosas, la vuelve para retratarla y volverla a usar.
So it's good all the way around. Multi-unit developments have to come with a full-fledged gray water system. Okay.
Es un sistema que también se está aplicando en los apartamentos.
Taking our black water, we're turning it into a Title 15 gray water, which could be used for crops. And we got.
Hay otro sistema que se está utilizando para cuando el agua no se puede limpiar mucho, se utiliza para riego.
We could use this gray water there, and it's underground water recharge, which is what is ultimately going to happen there. So, you know, trying to work out some sustainable
También
systems.
Están buscando aguas subterráneas porque se va a necesitar.
So, to pipe in more a little bit about floodplain restoration as some real serious answers for subsidence and drought problems in the San Joaquin Valley. 80% of the developed water, that means water that doesn't stay in rivers in California, is used for industrial agriculture. And one of the things that we really have to do to reverse subsidence and to protect our water future is we really need to restore floodplains. There's a multi-benefit in the San Joaquin Valley along the San Joaquin River watershed, where if you reconnect, because right now we've overpumped so much that our rivers are physically disconnected underground from the aquifers. But if we work to do good floodplain restoration work, not only could we have a healthy river system that would provide public benefit for all the communities throughout the San Joaquin Valley to enjoy nature and recreation and for cooling opportunities and public trust resources like fisheries, but you would also be able to start restoring your water supply. Raised projects are absolutely wonderful, and urban conservation. Half of our water in urban areas is used for outdoor landscaping. That is all crucial work that has to be done. But if we really want to protect people downstream in Stockton who are going to be looking at arc storms at 5 times the magnitude of current storms in the next 50 years, we can't just depend on levees. We have to have floodplains throughout the valley that can absorb that water and then protect that water so the communities throughout the valley have water during the dry periods.
Okay, well, thank you. Melissa's going to finish this off and she's going to explain if there's any more follow-up questions. Go ahead, Melissa.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for those great questions from the audience, as well as those great responses from our panelists. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions for our first panel, but if you have a question that was unanswered or you still want to ask a question, please feel free to reach out to our panelists. Their information has been dropped in the chat. I would encourage you to reach out. I think that's also how our efforts stay cohesive across the valley, is if we stay connected and we network. So please reach out, and thank you once again to our panelists. We're now going to head towards a small break. We're going to do our raffle, so feel free to take a break, get some coffee, enjoy some music, and we'll get started with our raffle shortly. Thank you.
And I will pass it over to Martha, and Martha is going to explain what's going on next. Thank you, Martha.
Hola, hola. Please feel free to grab some coffee, stretch. Woohoo! Enjoy the music. Y siéntase libre a tomar un café, estirarse y disfrutar la música. Estamos aquí para servirles. We're all here to help each other and work out together. Take a short break, and we are going to be having a raffle right now. And our big raffle is spinning. Can you show us who's going to win? Jonathan Q.
Jonathan Q.
Ándale, ándale. Who's the winner? Spin, spin, spin. Aquí les va. Here it goes. Much thanks to the first group. Yes, much love. Thank you so much for all of your questions. Erika Fernandez.
Darren Kumar.
Darren Kumar, you are our winner. Please enter your email so that we can follow up. Darren Kumar. Woohoo! Give it up for Darren. Continue with more music for the next 4 to 5 minutes, and we'll be right back with our second panel. Thank you. Enjoy the music. Oh, looks like we've got another drawing for Trish. Trish Johnson. You are our lucky winner. By the way, each winner has won a $50 gift card, and we're very, very excited. Congratulations. We hope we added some cheer to your day. It's raining here in Merced, and it's starting to clear up. I don't know what the weather's like in your area. Chime in, put it in the chat. Let's talk to you in a bit. Bye.
Why spin the track when I could pirouette? Walking down all these emerald aisles, bet my family name on this. I don't die on hills, I move mountains. I know my joy is in Zion. Set my intentions, then lap them. Positive charge in my ions. Home is where the heart is. Home is where my art is. Home is where none of my dreams are ever gonna be at risk. Home is where I'm not holding all of your trauma like I was at this. Cause I know that I've got this, but I know I deserve rest. God save the children, I'm gorgeous and young. God bless my heart, look at how far I've come. Spotless and blameless, addicted to shame. I'm accustomed to claiming my path, but I'm making a plan, making a mark, making a stand, making an oath, and I'm holding my ground, holding my sound. Take what I've found and I'm holding it down. Hallelujah, feeling so shinafina. I will not fall for a bula. Bust from my drive, keep the pressure on. Never lesson, that's lesson one. Got a re-rock, hallelujah, feeling so shinafina. I will not fall for a bula. Bust from my drive. the lesson, that's lesson one.
There's a massive amount of love moving through me, and I am learning to fully surrender to the frequency of love. I cannot stop it, nor am I supposed to. The goal is to become one with love, and for love to make me one with the Creator.
There is a massive amount of love moving through me, and I am learning to fully surrender to the frequency of love. I cannot stop it, nor am I supposed to. The goal is to become one with love, and for love to make me one with the Creator.
is ready to go again, recharge, either lunch. Again, this is more of an informal, so feel free to have your snacks and eat and enjoy your beautiful, for us right here, in Lodi, beautiful Thursday morning. Sun shining. It's great. Awesome. Okay, so we'll start our next panelist. And I'd like to first introduce who's going to set this up and who's going to be the guide for this panel. And our second panel is going to be led by Evelyn Vega. She is our newest program specialist who's doing great work for us. We really enjoy bringing her on. So with that, Evelyn, can you go ahead and take us into the next group?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning or afternoon now. But yes, I'm going to be introducing the second panel, and I'm very excited to introduce them. So I'm Evelyn Vega. Like I mentioned, I am the newest program specialist with Catholic Charities for the Stanislaus County. For our second panel, I am happy to introduce PACE, Partners Advancing in Climate Equity. Like Hector mentioned, it is going to be an informal discussion, so please feel free to drop in your questions or comments or concerns. We'll be discussing the importance of creating networks and connections between climate resilience and social equity within our communities to promote climate solutions and environmental justice. I will start by introducing each panelist and giving you guys a little background. And then after that, they will go ahead and share their work and what brought them in today. So here with us today, I would like to introduce Irene Camelin. She is the Community Development Director for Little Manila. Martha Armas Kelly, Program Coordinator for Catholic Charities. Fatima Malik, Del Paso Heights Growers Alliance Lead Organizer. And Anita Lopez, founder of Soy Lopez Consulting and OMNE Partners. Thank you again for being here with us today. And if you could please share with us and the audience a little bit about you and your background and the work you do and how you joined the PACE cohort. I would start with Fatima Malik.
Vamos a empezar con Fatima Malik.
Good afternoon, and I see Mary Elizabeth is in the house. Yes, Pacers for Life. That is Grant High School. Is the local high school that I went to in Del Paso Heights, which is where I'm from, and I currently reside in, which is identified as a disadvantaged community according to Cal Enviro Screen. Really happy to be here, and as my main purpose in being here today is to really kind of uplift and highlight the kind of drastic needs in our communities, because we continuously are seeing a lot of challenges, and we want to kind of get ahead of them and kind of get out of this crisis mode and really start to revitalize our communities in ways that would allow for more self-determination and also, you know, alleviating poverty. So thank you for having me, and happy to be here.
Thank you for being here with us today. Our next panelist, it's Irene Camelin.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I'm Irene Columlum. I'm with Little Manila Rising as their community development director, but also just growing up in the city of Stockton and just really understanding the burden of redlining and just different policies that have brought in different environmental hazards was what like inspired me to get involved and just see like the growth of environmental justice efforts in Stockton and efforts to mitigate air pollution and plant trees and grow community gardens has been really fruitful, and really engaging youth and building resident leaders to get involved in this environmental justice fight and really work collaboratively. So I'm really excited to be on this panel and really excited to share the stage with PACE leaders. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Up next, we have Anita Lopez.
Anita Lopez.
Hi, my name is Anita Lopez, and I have been, can everybody hear me?
Anita, it seems like we cannot hear you. Are you in the English channel?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. So my name's Anita Lopez, and I am an independent consultant who does a lot of program evaluation and program planning work, strategic planning for nonprofits. And most of my work interacts with
consultora que se dedica,
health
hace muchos tipos de trabajo para
and public health. So I think when it comes to climate, it's not included in as many public health spaces as it should be.
El clima no está
So I'm hoping to just bring that opportunity to communities
ver la oportunidad de que eso se haga
collaboratively with community members.
Y colaborar con otras organizaciones para que eso ocurra.
Thank you so much. And lastly, we have Martha Armas Kelly.
Ahora es
Hi, everyone. Martha Armas Kelly, Program Coordinator for Catholic Charities. I'm just honored to be here amongst all of my colleagues. They are all respected in their communities for the work that they're doing. We're all part of the PACE cohort, and there are several others that would have been just as great candidates to be sitting on this panel. The idea today is that we're really trying to bring forward the narrative of equity. And in my work, I work in Merced, actually Stanislaus, I live in Merced, and bringing a narrative towards climatic changes and the things that we're dealing with as we face this climatic change in the environment. We've been part of this process, and in Catholic Charities, we bring forward the Laudato Si, which is caring of the land and understanding, the whole, it starts in our home and then it goes out to the land. And part of my work is with the general plan in Stanislaus, which is Modesto, California, and outlying communities such as Empire, West Modesto, Airport regions, and South Modesto. Right now, our work is basically trying to get as many people involved in the narrative for environmental justice and promoting safe water, land use, and also many other parts of environmental justice. So I'm just proud to be here today, and I'm so happy to be able to share the space with all my other friends here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, panelists. I'm excited to have you guys and to get to know more about the work you do and about your background. It is going to be an informal discussion, so I will begin by asking you guys a question, and then from there, whatever you guys would want to have in mind to say, feel free. As well, if you have anybody in the audience has questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A or in the chat. So my first question is, overall, what inspired you to participate in the PACE cohort, and how has that changed your view on climate equity?
I could go. So with the PACE program, maybe I'll link to the website, but when we were first applying it, I kind of had this circular model of what they're trying to accomplish with the goals: cultivate, co-create, propagate, and activate. And so really what that comes to is bringing advocates or people representing frontline communities that have been most impacted by environmental injustices. And by bringing able to be in a network together, we're able to share what's best practices happening in our communities, which has been really important in learning new tactics and strategies and building skill sets. And I think from building up these leaders that represent these communities, those leaders are then able to do the same thing and propagate that knowledge to build up the capacity of other local organizations and other leaders and other youth to create this larger coalition of people that are trying to accomplish a vision for community. And at the same time, we're able to support each other as similar communities as well to either do statewide advocacy pushes, and there's a lot more that can be accomplished together. So I think that was what drew me to the PACE program.
Thank you so much for sharing. Does any other panelists have anything they would like to share?
I think Irene nailed it. You know, I'll just add that it's been certainly the best program I've ever been a part of for an online program. And also during the pandemic, it was an amazing opportunity to be able to connect with folks throughout the state of California, right? I'm in Sacramento. You know, Martha and Irene are in the Central Valley. You know, Anita's down in SoCal. And so, I mean, just being able to build our network within the state has been an amazing experience, but also getting connected with some our project leadership team. I have to give a shout out to Climate Resolve, Green Lining Institute, and all the other partners, Urban Permaculture Institute. Like, they've just been amazing in their thoughtfulness and how they put the program together, how they've implemented it. And it's been a very rewarding experience to just be in community with those in an online space, and to have it done so well and you know, and actually be productive and conducive to you know, to advancing not only our individual kind of place-based work in our localities, but again, statewide efforts as well.
Yeah, and I'll share one more thing that I think is really helpful is to understand that we have, although we've been selected, we've also been given the opportunity to help co-create some of the goals of the program moving forward. So when we talk about equity, not only are we participants, but we're shared developers, right? And they do leverage our own personal and lived experiences. And it allows us to really be able to see ourselves doing this work as well. That it oftentimes feels like the climate is for us, and we're catching up to try and understand what they're talking about. But I think this opportunity gives us the opportunity, the knowledge of knowing we do have solutions. We're just not implementing them equitably.
So part of, thank you, Anita. So part of our work has been the CNA, which is the Community Needs Assessment. Each individual PACE participant is required to put together a component giving face or recognition to some of the needs or disparities of each given community. And I think that that's been the main, like the end game. But as we've been participating, it's really about learning about our own capacities, how we each bring forward, you know, our own narrative, our own ideas. And when we meet, we get to share these ideas and to have governance, you know, Strategic Growth Council and all the other organizations that were mentioned, to actually really say, hey, we know what we're doing, but we want to know what you're doing, and to take like sections of California and bring those leaders together and create this. Like, to me, it's like a multi-dimensional assessment of minds, you know, where everyone's coming in and giving part of what they're doing, what their vision is, what their creation has been in their community, what are the disparities even for themselves. Because sometimes in these positions, we find that we do the work, but we haven't really been taught how to do the work. So coming together has been an experience for us to be able to say, I don't know everything, right? And I want to learn everything. So what do you know? And sharing. And in a neutral place, and so many things, you know, from agreements. We started out with what are some of the agreements that we're going to all adhere to? What are some of the things that we want to recognize? Recognizing that we all come from different backgrounds, different levels of trauma. Early on in the PACE cohort, I want to remind you, it's the inaugural cohort. So it's been a lot of, you know, bumps and changes and evolution. It's changed and evolved into something so beautiful that we're so excited, because we can't wait to see the next group, right, that comes in to see how they're going to benefit. I think that equity was brought forth for us because we were able to be part of something that normally wouldn't happen. A lot of folks fed into our hearts, into our minds, into our spirits by giving us knowledge and sharing that knowledge and learning about different groups, bringing forward, you know, permaculture, understanding the native plight, how important it is to be part of that narrative, working with different groups and different people from different backgrounds. And one of our cohort members, bless her heart, she's faith-based organization, but she's a wonderful light in our group, and that from the youngest, I think, I don't even know what age, I think we started like 19, there's someone so young, and then all the way to 80 something, I don't know, older perspective. But it's just been such an enriching experience that I challenge you, if you are doing the work and you want to be part of something that is way bigger than yourself, and but not so big that they don't want to hear what you have to say, which is really important. Apply. It's rewarding, and the things that I have been able to learn from them, everyone, it's just there's no price on it, and there's just no value, like it's just priceless.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. I did have another question. Why is equity important to you, and how does it highlight the environmental justice crisis within the communities you work with?
I'll go first, since that is what I'm focused on. So I guess what I want to start with is that, in our communities where, and even I listened to the first panel speak, and, there's really this challenge that we're dealing with, which is urban planning, right? And urban planning is really, I'll say, it's what sets the infrastructure for, the social determinants of health and everything that happens after that. So that means that, when we're talking about like poverty and the concentrations of poverty, to me, equity is really about how do we focus on addressing those inequities, which first and foremost is economic inequity. Right? And then it stems from that and it spirals out of control, because then you're talking about access to public goods and infrastructure, housing, education, and everything else in between, which we know right now has gotten a little, I think, the cost of living in California has gone so high that we're seeing so many crises, and I think it's going to continue, right? And so for me, the three things that I'm focused on is food, housing, and energy. And if you look at each of those and either of those, the amount of issues that we have when it comes to where we've either failed at planning, right? And all the work that has to be done now is, I think, critical. And the other thing I want to talk about is when we think about, like, there's communities have immediate needs, right? So like right now, we've had some major storms and people are living outside, so they need shelter, right? It's frigid cold, and folks don't have a place to sleep, okay, safely, let alone when you wake up, you need a place to, use the facilities and hygienically, prepare for the day. And then sometimes you might have a leaky roof or things like that. And so I think there are immediate needs in our communities that are not being served or met, right? Or not at the scale of the problem, right? And then there's immediate and intermediate, like midterm needs, and then there's long-term needs, which I think certainly affordable housing is one of them. Energy freedom is another one, and then reducing and or eliminating, air pollution would be the other one. But I think those are kind of like the ways in which, first and foremost, I think it's about how do we address the poverty and the populations that are experiencing it an extraordinary amount.
Yeah, definitely. Equity is just being able, a lot of people think equity is like everything is equal, but it's not, because some folks have resources and others don't. So it's basically bringing those that don't have the resources to a level where those that have resources are at least somewhat on the same level playing field. I kind of remind myself about things like when we're out there doing and promoting, EV vehicles, or if we're talking about solar panels and we want to give that opportunity for folks to have that energy resource. But when you go out to a home and the house can't support a solar panel, and we want to provide, and we think about how we plan a grant, and we're excited because we have dope amount of money and we're ready to give it out to the community, and we get to the house and you qualify and you meet all the needs and everything, but when we get to your house, that roof is leaking and it won't sustain a solar panel. So then we really missed the mark, right? Because if we were to look at what really starts from the bottom, systemically, we have to look at the root cause of what is creating those disparities and start from that perspective, because we're not making a solution for our folks when we don't look at the whole paradigm, where it's stemming from, how things are changing. So yeah, Fatima, you're on point, and that's what we're talking about. Those are the conversations that we have in PACE. How can we make this equitable? How can we make this a better California, for all of us, not just understanding that some folks sometimes think that if we start out helping those that don't have, then somehow they're not going to have because we're going to take away. But it's like, if we're all eating, we're all eating. If we're all benefiting, we're all benefiting, and not looking at things like this, but overall. So changing your paradigm, the way you think about things.
Anita has her hand up. Would you like to say anything, Anita?
Yes. Yes, Fatima. Yes, Marta. And I think one of the reasons that I did enter the field is because I really believe that the solution may not be immediately in front of us, but it's there. And I believe it rests with a lot of the youth and the young people that are going to be living in the world, right? And so what's happening, particularly when we talk about policy or urban planning, we have people that are part of the problem creating the solution, right? And we're not inviting some of our younger individuals, meaning our 13-year-olds, our 12-year-olds, our third graders who know better, into the conversation and allowing them to create the world that they want to live in. And so really being able to provide opportunities for guidance and mentorship so that they are in a place where they can be solution oriented, that they realize also that they have the power to change the dynamic if it's not serving their community. And civic engagement is one of those, right? Really understanding why and who and how you're voting, right? That's one policy direction. The other is, what are your job opportunities in this field? Is there a specific field that you are really interested in that you would like to be a leader in? And then the third would be, how do we influence the young people to influence those that are unwilling to change? Because we know a lot of times our families are more responsive to what the needs of the children are than we are to ourselves, right? So if young people really feel like they're going to live in a world and they see the older individuals sort of doing things that are not helping that, they can influence the decision making and making better decisions within the household as young as middle elementary school. So that was the other reason why I think it's really important to just have these conversations open, candidly, and invite people to the conversation at whatever level they're comfortable with.
I just wanted to add something really quick also, if it's okay. So I think part of the reason why I feel like I love organizations that do work just holding environmental justice workshops and raising awareness of the issues and the importance of advocacy is like when I first moved to Stockton, I was growing up in the Little Manila neighborhood, and it wasn't until I went to college that I realized that that specific neighborhood had so many environmental hazards, but other social vulnerabilities as well there. And I didn't know that until I started hearing about Stockton in college classes that weren't even like in Stockton. And also just even the history of that neighborhood having rich ethnic enclaves of Chinatown, Little Tokyo, Little Manila, and all of those were communities were wiped out to build the crosstown freeway and displaced, and just kind of knowing that history and just growing up there and just knowing that a lot of my peers or a lot of other residents in Stockton don't know that is probably is part of the reason why so many of those environmental hazards were be able to situated there. And just a quote that I've always loved hearing in this work, the nothing about us without us is for us, is that if you're the person most directly impacted by the issue, you should be there at the decision-making table and having a say on things that are coming into your communities and whether you want something that's going to harm your health there or not. And I think now that we've over the past few years in Stockton started having those conversations and workshops, that people are just a lot more aware now and are able to try to mobilize early. Right now there's an effort to study carbon sequestration and injecting carbon into the ground is a climate change solution, and they're thinking about situating that in Stockton. But a lot of residents are concerned about that because it's so close to the San Joaquin Delta, which is one of the largest suppliers of water to the state, and just has a lot of protected species there. And it's just the question on if there is a worst case scenario where that pipe breaks and leaks and puts in all of that hazards back into the ground, that would be like a natural resource that is important to Stockton residents that would be gone. So yeah, I think with equity is just always important, because if people aren't at the table, then they might not be aware of decisions that are being made to harm them, and they're able to be more proactive and try to take action early.
So part of the equity movement for all of us has been basically looking and evaluating what's going on in our community. Are there interpreters available for folks when they come to those meetings of governance? In Modesto right now, we don't have interpreters, so we're working on that. Some of the other things that we look at is how to reach other groups that maybe we wouldn't normally engage with because they're not in part of our scope of work. So sometimes it's like thinking out of the box. And I think that it's been very fruitful for all of us to be able to look at our work and see how we can improve just by listening to what others are doing, and not so much create this like silo of competition, but create an environment where we help each other. And coalition building within the community. We have the Stanislaus Sustainable Community Coalition that is made up of a variety of different stakeholders that are doing environmental justice work and moving towards creating better general plans, smart planning, land development, all of these things. We've looked at SB 1000, which has been the initiative for so long that hasn't really happened in a lot of our communities, but we want to be at the table. As Irene said, we want to be able to make those inferences, make those decisions, and it does start at a lower level or younger age. I involve my children as much as I can, and we all encourage the youth to be part of these processes, because the fact that a lot of life skills and social skills training has been pulled out of the learning institution leaves a lot of youth at risk without having any kind of leadership or any kind of understanding about what is going on in their environment, how the laws play into their own lives. And sometimes it's just looking at an inward approach about what we're living in, because a lot of times community residents aren't even aware they're living in the disparities. So we bring forth things like Calum-Virus screening, technical abilities that can help and promote that level of understanding with our community residents. So that's been part of the movement for equity, is bringing the narrative to the forefront and not just saying, oh, look, the sky is gray, what does that mean? But really kind of giving them an understanding of how to look for and how to be able to identify, how to be able to speak in governments and be able to say, no, we are bringing data, and we're not just saying that we don't like the water or how it tastes, but we're actually bringing you information from Calum-Virus screen, and we want you to recognize that we live in contaminated regions, and we want you to understand that we know what's happening. So empowerment of the community has been crucial, and how we approach that has been just as important.
Por eso que es tan importante compartir la información
I
para que se
see
enteren de que
Fatima
los
has her
problemas
hand up.
realmente les
Would you
afectan
like
a
to
ellos.
share, Fatima?
Yeah, I think along those lines, in terms of thinking about SB 1000, right? I mean, we're talking about environmental justice. And what's interesting is that there's a fine line between the spirit of the law and the letter of the law, right? And I think that what we're seeing a lot of right now is the letter of the law, right? Oh, we're doing this because we have to, right? This is the first time ever that we've even had a platform to talk about environmental injustices and mandate, right? With that cities and counties, local jurisdictions actually have a plan, right? That we're baked in their general plan when it comes to the communities that we're a part of. But I think that some of the challenges that I see, at least in the kind of near term, is that some of this work is very technical, right? And I think that community engagement cannot be a replacement for a proxy for urban planning, right? Like basically that means like we all have to sharpen our skills in research and urban planning so that we actually know, like Martha said, how to show up in these meetings, because here's the reality, right? So you've got these communities that have been, obviously redlined, all this, messed up stuff that's been going on 150 years plus, decades, centuries old. And so now it's like the fox being in charge of the hen house, right? A lot of the people that are in these decision-making powers for folks that are impacted the most, they don't live in these communities. They're a little removed. And so I think it's a bit dangerous to assume that, community engagement alone is going to get us out of this mess. It's not. The other piece is that if we look at the neighborhood as a unit of analysis, right, a lot of these are systemic issues. Very quickly, when you look at programs that come out, they're very individualistic, right? They're not holistic, they're not collective, they're not systemic. And that's a shortcoming. So I would argue, and I would challenge all of us to think about, when we are examining the issues in our community, right? It's not fair for the community to try to figure out how to get out of the situation that they're in, right? The exposure to all these environmental hazards and toxins, and they're already unhealthy. They already don't have healthcare. They don't have the income. So it's like something as simple as maybe an air filter in their home to just address the immediate need, right? To just mitigate that harm. Okay. And then long term, it's like, okay, stop these ports from all this pollution spewing in the atmosphere, right? So there's that continuum in that spectrum. And I'll just say, when we think about healthcare, right? And just how the economic spin-offs of healthcare and where they're placed, right? And the spin-off of the billions of dollars, it's a billions of dollar industry, right? And if you think about where they're at, they're in the suburbs, right? And all of the economic spin-off from healthcare, right? That our communities, I would say, are victim of. Like if you got diabetes, if you're on medication, and you're now unhealthy and unable to be healthy, or you need a caregiver or things like that, right? There's a lot of burden on our communities already, is what I'm saying, right? So we're taxed, right? We're paying a diversity tax. We already are caregivers. We're working multiple jobs. We don't have time to even engage. And so what I would say is that when you, if you were to break your arm, right, you're going to go to the doctor, and the doctor's not going to make you read your own x-ray. The doctor's not going to make you perform your own surgery, right? So again, I think if we look at our communities and injustices as here we have some severe problems, right? And we're going to need some experts, right, to really figure out that urban planning piece, which is the problem, right? Poverty was created, it's been manufactured. And we have to now figure out how to undo that harm of this cumulative trauma that we're dealing with. So I would say that, yes, those things are important, but we have to not lose sight of the bigger picture at hand, which is far more complex than probably any one of us alone can figure out, but we got to work together to try to really move upstream.
Yes, thank you so much. We do have a few questions. If I'm going to go ahead and read those to you. One of the questions says, with pesticide persistence expected to become a larger issue with each year and even seasons, should lobbying for science funding in rural communities/schools be pushed more? If not, maybe more outdoor classes at a younger age. much like the German model.
Estás hablando de la educación, si acaso debería
Yeah,
comenzar
so
más temprano.
I'll go ahead and answer that from my perspective. I think the short answer is yes. However, lobbying and advocacy are two very different things, right? And so lobbying usually often involves, I want to say, a very direct approach to policy, right? And so I don't know that everybody always has the capacity or the desire to do direct lobbying, but advocacy at all levels is welcomed, right? So even buying organically is a way to choose, right? If you can't afford it, that's understandable, but advocating for something else within your community, maybe, you know, more natural and organic foods in the schools, right? So there are a lot of opportunities to continue to advocate that don't require the level of involvement as lobbying. But also, I would say, yes, lobbying is very important because those that are in the public affairs department and the policy department lobbying are up against really huge corporations that are also lobbying, right? And that means you're in an uphill battle. What we really want to do is be able to understand how these processes work and at which point do we want to engage and how do we allow ourselves to be a conduit for conversation that advances the conversation and whether or not we're willing to accept the system that's given to us, right? Or do we want to advocate on behalf of democracy and really use our democratic voice to kind of move things?
Thank you so much for sharing. Does anyone have anything to say about this question?
I think with lobbying, one shift that has happened policy-wise that has been able to bring a lot of opportunity is the shift to make sure that a lot of the greenhouse gas reduction funding is going to communities that have been most impacted by those environmental injustices. And like the CalEnviro's Green tool was an example of something developed that calculates those different hazards and then other social vulnerabilities, and that has been able to open opportunities with like AB 617 and transformative climate communities to come to cities like Stockton. And I think the important thing is once those do come in, to make sure it's meeting the top priorities that residents select. So with us, in order to get the transformative climate communities, we have to go through a whole planning process to engage residents in what are the top environmental issues they see in their community, so that way those can be implemented with funding that gets passed down. So yeah, in some communities it might be the pesticide issues, particularly rural. And I would hope like those similar funding would be available, but yeah, that's kind of how it's worked in Stockton.
No sé en otros lados, pero en Stockton sí ha funcionado.
Go ahead, Anita.
I'm okay.
Oh, sorry, I saw your hand up.
Sorry, I didn't lower it.
Thank you so much for sharing. I just, my last question for you guys. What advice do you give those young teenagers or even those kids or those young adults coming straight out of college or in college? What advice do you give them in pursuing this kind of work? And joining PACE.
¿Qué consejo le dan a las personas, a los jóvenes que estén recién saliendo de la universidad para poder hacer esto?
I would say that I think the most important
Yo creo que lo más
any of this work is to know where you want to put your time and energy. I think
saber si acaso quieres poner el tiempo en esto.
The issues that we're facing are vast, right? And in my work as an instructor for a health administration program, I say, what do you want to do? Because no matter what you want to do, you could do it in the healthcare field. And it's the same for equity, and it's the same for environmental justice, right? If you really want to see change, you have to pick an area of interest that you see yourself wanting to advance. And if you don't know, join at all levels and figure out what is your niche. For me, it's the intersection of health and policy, right? That's where I've gotten, but I didn't start there. I started with tutoring, right? And tutoring in communities that are important to me. I went from tutoring to being able to manage programs in my community, and they weren't related to environment, but I can be able to talk to individuals at a young age and learn to prioritize their needs and not be an adult, have adultist attitudes, meaning that their voice doesn't value. From that, it moved into really wanting to understand education and policy and health, right? So what you're seeing here is kind of a trajectory for yourself. So the more you explore early on, the more you can actually hone in your skills and create something that follows you throughout your career, whether you have a job or whether you have interest is up to you, right? But this is a field that's wide open. So really reach out to those that are in the field wanting to help you. And, you know, I'm open to talking with any young person that's interested in doing that work.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, there was a question of what advocacy, well, lobbying and advocacy we've been doing. I think one, have to be really clear, we're very early in our advocacy and policy efforts. I wouldn't call it lobbying per se, because we have to be a bit mindful that some of our partners are from the state. And so, you know, if we are lobbying to the state, we can't really have them in the room. And so there's been a fine line. We also have to kind of balance where we almost have to remove ourselves and have a subset for policy advocacy work. Some of the work we have done is around some of the recent kind of, you know, efforts around California climate investments. Right now, though, I'll end on this note, which is very, very relevant and current, is like not letting neighborhoods produce their own energy is going to result in like no price change. So it'll be the same as gas. So I would highly encourage any and all of you, if you're not following the net energy metering debacle right now with the California Public Utilities Commission trying to charge a monthly fee just to have solar is antithetical to even the idea of, you know, being able to reach energy freedom and or be able to become producers of some of these infrastructure. So let's just talk about energy and even like commodities. Like if we want to keep it real, like a lot of these commodities were controlled by white men historically during colonization, where they monopolized all of these energies and all of these things that we need, basic infrastructure from electricity, right? Access to the railroads. So when we talk about monopolies and greedy corporations, like, you know, it's something that is going to take a huge, I think, like lift to kind of like, you know, up, like throw that statue down type of thing, right? But there, yeah, a lot of our communities, I think, are being sucked bone dry, right? That extraction and exploitation continues to happen. And I think that while I don't have the answers, I certainly think that we got to keep fighting. And I know some folks are just tired of fighting, right? Because these are things that we should just, this is like basic human needs, our humanity, right, is at stake. And I think that that is the challenge, but also I think the opportunity to keep pushing for what we know is our entitlement as a human being, but also to be able to thrive and not just be in survival mode all the time.
Thank you so much for Pace for joining us and sharing. If you have any more questions for our panelists, we will be providing their contact information as well as the recording. So once again, thank you so much for joining us and being here with us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk and educate us. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. So far, everything's been going so great, and we're just getting so much information. which
muy agradecidos de toda la información que
my
nos han
lovely
estado
sister
dando.
Fatima segued into what it is to understand the practices and how colonization has played a part on how we look at environmental justice. Today's
Porque ha sido una
segment
oportunidad de ver
is going to
qué
be
es lo
based
que,
on our Indigenous
cómo
leaders. We've invited some
la
Indigenous
igualdad
leaders in
entre
our
el impacto
community.
nos está
I'm part of
afectando.
UTALK, and I'm also an advocate for UTALK, and I am so honored to be able to sit in this circle with some of my brothers that are in the movement, working out in their community. But one thing that I want to bring in and raise a narrative is understanding that us as urban Indigenous folks are not really aware of what happens on the reservation, are not really aware of the resiliency. Yeah, we can read about it, but there's nothing like actually living in those disparities. And because of that, we're out there doing the work. We're out here doing, whatever we can to bring and raise a narrative for these disparities and how climate is affecting us, how it's imprisoned us, how it's enabled us not to be able to go forward and have like that freedom that Malik was talking about. And we want that freedom. But long ago, we all were free. We were all on this land. There were no lines or barriers or any type of restrictions. We all lived off the land and we were conscious of the land. And when we look at environmental justice issues, we have to recognize that our brothers here have long lived through every transition that we could create outside of the native population. We've been destroying little by little our land and our structures, and now we're looking for answers. And we have to look at those folks that have been resilient through all the changes that they've been exposed to, whether it's been colonization, stratification, redlining, living on the reservation, being separated from their families, from their children. They all have experienced something, and we brought these folks here today to share, to just give us a little bit of their perspective, understanding and respectful of cultural practices, understanding and respectful of transparency, and so many other salient issues that we as outsiders cannot even begin to understand. But we're hoping that today we'll be able to elevate this narrative, have a little bit more of an in-depth conversation, and this is your chance to have those questions answered, the ones that maybe you were afraid to ask. And I want to invite and welcome our panelists. Waylon Coates. Coates is a member of the South Sierra Miwok Nation. He was born and raised in Yosemite Valley, and he's a descendant of Chief Tenaya, an Awani leader raised among the Monopoyut people. His homestays is at the Sierra Priest allotment near Mid Plains in Mariposa County. And we're very happy to have you here, Waylon. Then we also have Kayla. Kayla's running around. Kayla is our young leader, our VP, our vice president of UTALK. UTALK is the United Tribes of California, and she currently attends El Capitan High School. She's in finals, so she's been popping in and out of our session today. Hopefully she'll be able to engage with you, and she has a really interesting perspective because she is our leader. And UTALK realizes when we're talking about youth, we need to bring them at the forefront, keeping them engaged so that they become the next successor. And we are just here as conduits versus being the direct leaders. We'd like, and Papa Bear here is Kayla's father. This is Joe Rios. Joe Rios, if we can clear that screen, Joe Rios is here, and he is president of UTALK. He resides here in Merced. He is Mescalero Apache Nation, representing his passion for inclusivity and the sustainability of our people. And last but not least, and we're so happy to have you here from Three Sisters Organization, we have Alfred Melbourne. He is here representing Sacramento West Sac area, and we're just so happy to hear you. You can unmute yourself so that you can be part of this discussion. And the way we have it set up, since we're all here, they're all going to talk at once, they're all going to kind of engage. But first question that I have for all of you is, what does environmental justice mean to you and what you're
¿Qué significa la
out
igualdad ante el impacto para ustedes? Le está preguntando al que presentó como presidente.
Wait. We forgot our elder.
We got one of our elders here.
I'm sorry, he wasn't on our prompter, and I bypassed him.
We don't allow that.
I know, right? Like, what am I doing? So, Gilly. Gilly, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Gilly Bearhart, the elder of the Utah Nation, United Tribes of California, come by the way of the Yaqui and Apache Chiricahua people, by way of my mother and my grandparents. And I'm just happy to be here on this panel, sharing with my brothers here, Julie Gobert, Waylon, and Martha.
Tengo mis titas.
Tita Weapons, we call her Tita Weapons, and brother Alfred. It's nice to see him, and we're just glad to be here, a part of this discussion, and sharing our thoughts and our point of views, and our wishes, our desires, and our hopes and our dreams with everybody. And thank you for having us, and we're looking forward to get started.
Thank you so much. Waylon, would you want to pick up on that question?
Yeah. So environmental justice, for at least where I come from, is the Amanichi tribe, so the Southern Sierra Miwok and Mono Lake Paiute people over there in Yosemite Valley. Is for us, it's just having access to our cultural sites, and then also doing our restoration, because we've had a lot of things destroyed, whether it be from building to, especially now with the wildfires. And so a lot of our cultural resource and our gathering areas have been pretty much wiped out. And so what we started doing is replanting. And then the same with the Chicken Ranch Reservation, as well as my reservation, Sarah Priest Rancheria, is we've been working a lot with different organizations, even such as UC Merced, with the biology department and anthropology departments, and really getting back and replanting and reseeding what we would like use for our natural resources, and starting to repopulate that amongst like our tribe and amongst the Yosemite Valley, and again at Chicken Ranch and Tuolumne. So we've been bringing a lot of stuff back. The Mariposa monarchs, they've been kind of going extinct in California. So last year we took about 30 youth and we planted, I think it was like 250 or 350 monarch plants at our creek. And so like anytime we can get grants for either the wildlife or natural resources, we try to get on there, and we find a spot to try to repopulate all those. So that's what we're currently doing.
A lot of times the grants, the way they're written, are done in a manner that they want us to like commingle or have another partner. How open are you to have partnerships?
Yeah, we're very open. We kind of started a movement. It's not what we can do for you or what we can do for us, but what can we do for each other? So I think having that open dialogue and that partnership is how we're going to be able to move forward. I don't think that you can just do it as a singular entity. Nah, you got to have a partnership.
So creating those allies is really, really important. Joe, I understand that like there's a lot of movement for sage and other plants that are needed in our communities here for our Native people. How is that something that UTALK is going to envelop? I'm hoping that they can explore that.
Well,
I understand you went out and gleaned several parcels of sage recently.
Yes, we go and we gather in a good way.
Can you explain that? I mean, for folks.
So, we don't just go and just, in our Native way, we always respect the land. We respect Mother Earth. We have ways of doing things. We don't just go and pick things or kill things or do things in a bad way, because we use everything. Those are our medicines, and we respect our medicines. We take that very seriously. We don't sell our medicines. There's a lot of people out there that are just picking stuff and then selling it on the internet and other things, and wanting to do our ways, which just do it in a good way. And so what's happening to our sage, where we used to go get sage, usually get sage, abundantly, it's no longer abundantly, just because people are going in there and gathering that stuff and making money off of it. And so, when you respect the ways and respect Mother Earth and those things, then, everything is abundantly and equal for everybody. But what I would like to see as UTALK, and what we're going to be planning in the future is, working with Alfred, getting a garden out here, in Merced area, working, and doing these things, planting some sage and making sure that we have these medicines for our elders and stuff, to make sure that it's abundantly and well taken care of.
Some of the issues, and that's great because now that it'll be available for all folks in this area, like you said, not selling it and being mindful of how we engage. Some of the things that we've seen in the past is that when some of these practices are shared, what would you tell to someone that you were going to be working with? How could they better apply or even approach, Native Indigenous groups, and how to approach?
Well, approach with respect and understand that we will, and understand that, we're not going to teach you everything because a lot of it is sacred to us. We don't just, teach things that have been into our culture for so long, for other people to gain profit off of it, so, and that's what we're seeing even with our own medicine. Just sage in itself, and that's what we're seeing. We have other medicines and other things that we do that we keep to ourselves.
Alfred, what do you think? What's your perspective on this?
Well, I was kind of backing up a little bit.
Whoa. Wait, Alfred, can you check your indicator and make sure that you're on English only and that you mute? Because we can't hear you.
It should be off mute now. No?
Hello, Alfred. Down at the bottom, there is an icon on Zoom saying translation. So you would click on that little circle, looks like the globe, then click on English, and then mute original audio.
Wow. This is not what I'm good at. I can't see it, this globe thing. I'm hitting. It
says interpretation.
Yeah, I don't see no interpretation, but
it is a globe like a Earth, and it should be the third one from the left. I mean, from the right. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Did you find?
What do you think, Gilly? What's your perspective on this? Oh, hi, Kayla. Thank you for joining us.
Well, I just kind of wanted to backtrack a little bit and touch on what Joe Eaglebear was talking about coming in a good.
I think I got it.
All right, Alfred, yay!
Okay.
Okay.
Did you see anything that says Spanish and English or English in the bottom?
Full transcript.
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, we're all here.
Am I good to go?
Live transcript.
Okay, well, I'm getting a little bit of feedback over here still, but if you guys can hear me, I just wanted to say particularly about environmental justice, and we talk about land restoration and being able to practice our indigenous ways and beliefs, but ultimately we have to have land in order to do these things on, and 90% of the land is in the hands of white people. So we need to talk about land back and being able to give folks access so that they can perform these ceremonies, so they can build their culture back up, so that we can have our languages. And of course, a lot of the tribes here in California, in particular in my area, Patuan, Miwok, Maidu, they're doing their parts to rebuild their culture, their heritage, and talk about their stories. I just think that other cities, counties, different states need to start acknowledging the native people, the original inhabitants of First Nations, and realizing that it was native indigenous knowledge from the beginning that has kept Turtle Island so pristine. And practicing our traditional ways is, what a lot of folks now call permaculture, and put different labeling on things. But, this is not something about prepackaged culture or ways of life. We need to be acknowledged as human beings and people, and given the space that we need, the resources that we need, the tools that we need, that we can continue to do for ourselves. So we talk about health crisis, and white supremacy is a health crisis. Racism is a health crisis for people of color that have been subjected to a lot of different forms of depravity, and we need to continue to uplift Native and Indigenous folks, create space where we can teach what we know, what has been passed down to us, what's not been told, as Brother Joe was saying, and continue to elevate our youth and make sure that we take care of Mother Earth so that these youth can have something to enjoy. And so just want to thank everybody for coming out, those folks that are listening, all the panelists. It's been just a pleasure to be able to participate with you all to this point, and look forward to hearing some other good conversation on the topics.
Tima says, preach, brother, because you're speaking the truth, and we're embracing you. Erica Fernandez is giving you much props, as well as Hector. Absolutely, Alfred. It says, there has been a push for social justice across this country. Do you feel that the push has been inclusive to the Native American communities? What do you think?
¿Ustedes creen que las políticas han sido inclusivas de la...
Any of you, come on, you can all talk at once. You know?
I'll answer that.
Han sido,
okay, so where I'm from, we're in pretty poverty outside Yosemite. And kind of goes back to the environmental thing, and these guys know I talk about it quite a bit, is I don't think so. Like, we still have families where I live with no power, no running water, no toiletries, and so we've been trying to get in contact with BIA or the county or grants, Bureau of Indian Affairs. We're just trying to get where I'm from, my people, just running water, you know, so they can take showers, have drinking water, take care of their children.
And that's here.
That's right here. Right outside
You
Yosemite.
hear that, folks? That's right here. That's not like in some third world country. We have people that are living in disparities that you wouldn't imagine.
So I would say that the push for that, where we're from, up in the mountain areas, we're not acknowledged up there. So I don't know about the city, Joe. So yeah, I would say no, because again, like, it's almost 2022, and I can't get a glass of clean water on my res.
I think that for us here in this local community, we're just now barely starting to see the little change, you know, not even a significant change, but just to even be acknowledged. On this last month, we had our Native Indigenous Heritage Month, and we weren't counted. So we brought it forth to our local governors, and we said, hey, you know, it should be something that we're part of. You know, here they're celebrating everywhere and bringing us to the forefront, and we're not having that. But locally, we are actually going to have a proclamation here in Merced, and we're going to be able to be part of something. And it was an interesting question in the conversation, and I look at things, you know, I say innocently, because the young lady said, so are there Native American people in Merced? And we kind of said, well, of course, you know, we're here, but that's really the question. Sometimes people ask questions and we don't want to be upset, but we are, you know.
Yeah, and I'll not add to that too. You can Google this. This is kind of going on right now, actually. As soon as I get done with this, I got to call a reporter, but Disneyland just opened up a resort called the Tenaya Lodge, and they got this stone from, you know, my relative Chief Tenaya. And you know, they're going to make profits off all that, but again, like, they're not going to help us get drinking water. So where's the social justice at?
Right.
Where's the trade? They're gonna use our tribe and some rock that they got given that's not part of Tenaya. They're gonna make millions of dollars off it. But we still can't give our kids drinking water or bath. So.
And that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about here today. Okay. Yeah, unbelievable, right? Any of you want to say anything particular? Oh, we forgot Kayla here. Kayla, what is your perspective on being part of the environmental justice movement? And I had mentioned to the audience before that you're a vice president of United Tribes of California, and that you're going to school. And what are you looking to achieve? And what is your education?
I'm hoping to go to a university, of course, and more or less just trying to go for law and help my people out in a timely manner. And you know, just like
when you say timely, you're talking about the fact that there's no time. There's no time, and that's what we've been discussing. We are in the present. The disparities are not going to go away, and we have hope because we have a future. We have our youth that we want to bring forward, and she feels the pressure. She feels the pressure because she's always says just trying to get an education, come back and have that governance, have that legal mindset to be able to speak the language for her people. And that's what we're talking about is raising up that narrative and understanding that, when we talk about how we engage with other folks, we want transparency. We want something to be equitable, something that's going to come back to, you took a rock. Well, where's the justice in that? If you're going to take the rock, then you need to bring back something to the people. We're going to go ahead and we kind of gave you a little bit of understanding about how we're going to go with this, but I want to hear from you. I want the questions to come through. So if you could start putting them in the chat. We are finally connecting throughout California as one and making history in a positive way. And we are. I'm seeing more and more Zooms out there that are talking about the language. We're talking about the disparities. We're talking about the changes. We're seeing our youth rising and starting to sit at the table and ask for the take home rather than just sitting there. And we're grateful for that. So Melissa says, thank you for this knowledge. Anita, capitalism at its best. You want to share a little bit? If you can jump on and unmute yourself. I'm like, we're in the living room and we're talking. Go ahead, Alfred. Don't be quiet because I know you ain't quiet.
No, I'm not quiet. I mean, I encourage everybody to utilize their voice and their strength and put that positive, good medicine out there. Just put things out there in a good way. That's how we start things. But you mentioned something a few minutes ago about our voice and are we getting enough recognition or acknowledgement? I think that, this is a good point in what we have to do is come together in panels like this, uplift, support each other, and make sure that if we all have needs that we're putting in the request out to the folks that can actually help and do something for us. When we talk about that, we talk about technical support and different things that we need to excel and do our own when we're talking about food sovereignty and taking care of ourselves. So my point is just to continue to raise Native Indigenous voices, empower the youth like you guys have there so that they can find their space and continue to grow upon the land that is inherently ours. Native folks being here since time immemorial, we need to let our youth know how important they are and that there are future leaders. But again, it's on us to leave them something behind so that they can enjoy and participate in. So we talk about being too late, sounding an alarm. The time has been for us to step up and start putting our hands to good work. So me personally, I'm a Hunk Papa Lakota, born and raised in West Sacramento, California. Spent many years in the criminal injustice system to come out and see what a broken system has done and how they've continue to leave our people behind. And so being educated, self-educated, and knowing that we need a way to feed ourselves, because we can protest, we can get mad, we can yell at people all we want, but what really comes down to, what are we going to do about things? We have to create a food support system so that we can teach our youngsters how to grow their own food, fall back on survival skills, on how to guide using the stars and paying attention to the seasons and when to grow. So anyway, just falling back on our Native Indigenous knowledge, you guys, and I wanted to make sure that we're acknowledging our elders and the original land that you guys are on. So everybody that's in this panel, you know, look in to see who the tribe is, the area where you're at, and acknowledge them and see how you can help those people that have been there for a long time.
Thank you. That's powerful. How can we approach our local communities and schools? This comes from Celestino. How can we approach our local communities and schools with suggestions of native-based ag? For too long, I have our standard stress, colonization in the mission system. Being a fourth grader, why can't we make native ways a standard? Our people have been fixing nitrogen and using IPM through the use of predatory insects for eons. Most of the environmental issues can be solved with looking at our own ways. Tino Dream Capture Genetics. So he's saying a lot of words there, like what you're doing is already something of a solution. Why can't we make this a practice? Why can't this be the main state or the course of action? So what do you guys think?
Well, I think it's going to take a lot of voices. And one of the things that I'm being prompted to say is that I don't know how many people are on this or listening to us.
There's about 60 to 80.
About 60 to 80 people. Now imagine every one of us joining hands together, right? A single strand is easily broke, but when you braid that strand together, it becomes stronger, right? You take 3 strands and it's harder to break. 4 strands, it's even harder. So the more people that we have on board, and we're open to suggestions, we're open to all of your help out there. Every single one of you that's out there that has an idea, that has an inspiration to work with indigenous people and indigenous culture. We welcome your ideas. We're open to your suggestions. We want to hear, and we want you to know that we're open to any of your suggestions, how, whatever comes to your mind, whatever inspiration. We want to find a way that you can communicate with us. Let us know what's on your mind. Let us know what you're being inspired to do, how we can work together. It's that 4-braided strand, that 3-braided strand that can't be broken. And we're all in this together. I drive up and down the 99. I see all these signs that say, leave our water alone. Newsom, leave our water alone. We need water. Water, I mean, you were born in water. You were 9 months in water. Water is your first medicine. You were in water.
Y el agua, por ejemplo, es buena medicina. How can government agencies and local agencies establish and sustain connectivity with tribal communities? What are the best ways or examples of a way to approach or create a connection? How can agencies elevate voices? Now, this is a big question because we have a lot of people out there that are in governance, right? And they're working for different agencies and councils, and they get to sit in front of their powers of being. They say, we want to connect with people outside. We want to connect with natives, but there's something that keeps them from connecting. What do you think it is? How it would be the best way to approach?
Well, the best way, I think what keeps them is, first of all, they don't know where to even go outside of the mainstream casinos, you know, but you have a lot of indigenous people that aren't part of those casinos,
right?
And that are looking to do big things and become movers and shakers in their communities.
So if you're not federally recognized, then what?
Then it becomes difficult, okay? And so what we need to do, those individuals and tribes that aren't federal, is to make yourself visible.
So what is Utah doing?
And so we're putting together this wholesome community of various tribes. We're becoming the umbrella, and we're creating a tribe where people that have been disenrolled from their tribe, disenfranchised, kicked to the curb, if we can use that, or just native people that are native but never had a home to go to or a connection with their people.
So that's what I understand. I think that sometimes folks don't realize that we were sprinkled everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And as we were sprinkled, some of us were able to maintain cultural ties, others weren't. And for those that weren't, I think that Utah, United Tribes of California, is a movement to create that connection with those folks that haven't been. So I think of yourself, Joe, how you're able to go out into the community and talk to folks. You mentioned a conversation you had with this elderly woman today that broke that kind of causeway or kind of pushed you into a direction where you're saying, yes, I'm on the right path because this is what needs to be done. We need to have those ties with folks that are marginalized even from their own people, right? In our own circles.
No, definitely, because I mean, just this morning, I met an elderly lady. She's Inuit from Alaska, and she's lived in the Bay Area forever. And she couldn't go back to Alaska, but she came out to Merced. Now she lives in Merced, and she's all, man, I can't even be with my people, like, you know. And she approached me. She's all, you're one of my people, you know. And I said, yes, I am. And I already knew that, you know, who she was. You know, she goes, you know what? Everybody mistakes me as a Mexicano or Mexicana or a Filipina or something, you know. And I'm like, well, I already knew, you know. And so we recognize each other in that way. And, you know, I give her my number and I let her know, hey, you know what? We are here. You know, you do have a home here. And so you will be with your people. So that's what Utah is all about. And so it does let me know that I am on the right track. So, and where I was this morning, probably shouldn't have been there. Well, I went to the hospital, but it was not even nothing happened over there. So it ended up just to meet her and then be back over
so
there.
that connection with folks, to be able to understand that we're all part of a bigger circle, right? We're all part of a bigger family in this scope of things. And how to approach us is to come with clarity, to come with honesty, integrity, respect, being respectful of our ways, of our culture, no hidden agendas. You know, I think that colonization has taught us already historically that when we open up our ways, things happen, right? So having that relationship is important, but bringing forth truth and acknowledging the truth is important, just as important. If we can scroll down, I just want to be able to. Anita has a comment. Okay, Anita, go ahead. Anita, unmute.
Yes, hi. Thank you all for being here. I just wanted to acknowledge our elder and wanted to thank you for really the invitation to participate and to support the work. I think one of the things that's always been hard as a binational resident, meaning that I live on one of the busiest international borders. So, and it's very clear, San Diego, Mexico, San Diego, Tijuana, that's where I'm from. And I think it's always sort of been, if you're not from one side, then you're not authentically Mexican. And I think that kind of paradigm, that kind of colonist mentality means that we're not all relatives, right? And the invitation and the welcoming to say that this is part of our shared community and our shared history is something that we as young people, I'm not so young anymore, but these younger generations really need to hear. You might not have lived these traditions, but these traditions are still here for you, and you're invited to participate. I think is something that we can all do collectively to invite people to really recognize that this is a true culture, that, you know, being part of a Native and Latin culture, there's intersections, and we can accept our whole selves, and we don't have to accept just a part of ourselves. So thank you for that invitation. I think that is something that both the spirit and our theoretics have to hear, right? We have to look at it from both sides. We have rights, but we also have spiritual rights to know that our ancestry is there for us.
Yeah, and I totally vibe with that, because like for me, when I first was approached, you know, like working as a community organizer, and when I was first approached through Utah, I was kind of like, okay, I'll help you guys with this and I'll be right here, but you guys go ahead and do what you're gonna do, right? And I was scared because I didn't have that that understanding or that knowledge. So many of us are out here like walking around and we don't even realize what we are. Like we say we're something, but we're not really aware of where we came from, you know? When I remember speaking at a Martin Luther King ceremony, and I asked to talk about the African influence on Hispanic culture. And I raised a lot of eyebrows because folks were like, how dare you say that we're African, you know? And I laughed and I said, well, we are. There's a chance that we could be African because when the Spaniards came to Mexico and created Mexico, they almost wiped out all the Nahuatl from that area because of a common cold, you know? And the folks that were there were just newly exposed to a common cold and were wiped out, you know, in that region or fled. And then, you know, they brought in 650,000 slaves to create the foundation for Mexico. And of course, history, you know, went on, and our first African Indio president was Benito Juarez. But a lot of people don't know that, right? So when you find out that connection and you realize that there are invisible lines that have been created and visible lines. Yeah, we have borders, but the invisible lines are the lines that we have in our hearts and in our minds, separating ourselves by saying, you know, I'm this, but I'm not that. You have to look at the bigger scope of things. I went back and researched. My father was born in 1908. The last Cachcañe tribe in Nochistlán, Zacatecas, were noted in history books in the 1890s. And my father was born in 1908, a direct descendant of the tribe, right? And I was born in 1966. My father was 58 years old. I am a direct descendant of the Cachcañe, and I had no idea, no understanding of that until I started like really taking the onion and pulling off the pieces. It validated me. It gave me that sense of ownership. But it should take that. It should be enough to know that we are a part of a bigger circle, and the lines were created for us to stay in our box. We don't have to stay in our box. We can go outside of that realm. So let's go to our next question.
Let's get all these questions.
How have the wildfires affected our community? Go ahead, speak up.
I don't know.
The air quality. You're right.
Around here, it's been like air quality has been horrible in a way, and like we can't even go out and practice. Like I'm in softball and I can't even go practice because the air quality has been horrible, and it's mainly because people are leaving glass and leaving all these materials that shouldn't be on the street or inside the forest, you know.
Estamos viendo que la gente tiene
they're not packing their garbage out.
Yeah.
Causes some fires and stuff like that, and you know, we've lost a lot of pine trees, a lot of pine trees due to fires. People's lost their homes.
Waylon, up in the hills, how are you dealing with that? I mean, like one of the things that we were looking at is how fires have just directly impacted your community. You're out there living in that environment.
So how the fires affected us is you know, obviously the air quality, and again, back to those cultural resources, gathering areas, uncovering archaeological sites like our old villages. And so, you know, if you look back, like you can even find this information online that around villages, pretty much anywhere in California, you know, we would manage in what we call today as cultural burning. So we would manage our litter, our forest litter, as best as we could, so we wouldn't get these devastating fires. So I think the fires are just going to get worse because of the environmental impact. And I think that we need to come up with a plan and start better utilizing our forest and keeping it clean.
Right now they're honoring, like I sat in on different Zooms and webinars where they're actually saying that they're honoring cultural burning as long as we let people know ahead of time that they're going to burn. How do you think that's going to impact us? Because at large, when someone wants to throw a blanket over something, right, they really would laud an opportunity to shut that down, right? So how do you think that that's going to impact the cultural burning in the future? Do you think it's going to be something that might be taken away?
Yeah, I think that that's kind of a loaded question.
Well, I go for the throw.
I don't know yet. I mean, we'll have to. Right now, there's a lot of talks with the Karuk tribe. They're way up north. If you don't know where they're located, they're in the Happy Camp, so the Klamath area. And they have a really good cultural burning, and they're working with the Forest Department, the United States Forest Service, and trying to come up with what does that look like? Again, as Indigenous people, we know what this looks like for us. It's cultural burning, but now they got to put a whole training on it. You got to be qualified. You're going to have to do this and do that. So even though it's a good thing, I can see a lot of restrictions coming from the governmental part.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, we have Iris Stewart-Bray. Could you explain a little bit more about the issues of why you cannot get clean water at the reservation?
Yeah. Okay, so we just come from like a really small area. We're not a gaming tribe. And we can't get any clean water because we don't have the funding or the resources. BIA doesn't have the funding for us because we're so small. They only deal with big, large tribes and reservations. And then then they don't have the funding. We do have IHS, which is Indian Health Services. And last time I spoke with them, they don't have the funding. So we don't have the funding. They don't have the funding. We don't have the resources. So that's why we don't have clean water.
So let me explain something to you. Iris Stewart-Bray is from UC Santa Clara. She is like a hydrology expert. That's her field of study. So maybe this is a way you guys can talk and have more dialogue. Iris, we're going to be having some more discussions in the near future. Just to let you all know, we're going to be having community-based and faith-based organizations in academia, and as well as understanding how we can work together. There's so many opportunities for capstone projects where folks that are going to school and studying can get hands-on practicum in making these solutions quantifiable and important for all of us by collection of data. And that's another source for helping us. It's correction. What are some of the ways that we can help our young people heal? Yes, trauma. How can we help our young people heal?
Well, we can help them heal by participating in their lives and getting involved with what they're doing, teaching them and teaching them the importance of culture. Culture is so important. We've lost culture due to technology. Technology is good, but we have to have everything in balance. We've got to keep things in balance, and we have to make the time to surround our to circle the wagon and get around our young people and let them know that they are appreciated and that we care for them, and teach them our culture, teach them our ancestral ways, so that they can have that balance. And so I think that that's one of the things that would strengthen that is for us older ones to share some of our time with them and be around them.
Alfred, I wanted to bring that question to you, and I know you were chomping at the bit. I'm a really big advocate about understanding the connection between schools and the pipeline to prisons. And I know that firsthand you've had experience in that area. And I think about what you must have been feeling while you were, on the other side of the paradigm and coming back out and seeing that we're still in prison out here, right? And I want to know more about what you'd like to say and share on that.
Yeah, I mean, I start off by saying, listen to these youth. We need to give them a voice and empower them so that they can see their worth. For our practices out here with the farming program, we're trying to create a new rite of passage by reconnecting these youth with the land and letting them see their worth and how they can put work in the field, learn how to grow, and then distribute these organic vegetables. So really, it's just coming down to giving these youth the support that they need and making sure that we're paving the way for their individuality, for them to be able to make mistakes and still offer them support. I think that we have a criminal injustice system that's so quick just to be heavy-handed and treat our youth as if they're disposable. And in our community in particularly, it was 90% of our youth being charged as adults were brown skin, native, indigenous, people of color. And there was no type of alarm, no concern whatsoever that the statistic was so high. So we figured, well, we put our money where our priorities are. And so what we have to do is, rather than continue to build up a criminal injustice system, I mean, put money in programs, mentorship, and education so that we can support our youth. We talk about native indigenous knowledge, and they were mentioning the fires and the way that we were controlling burns out here, native indigenous people, for thousands of years prior to. So it's like acknowledging original people and putting the support that the youth need to help them so that they can see what they need to do, because for us it's just guiding, setting a path for them.
Thank you, Alfred. Thank you so much. I think that when we recognize the value of our youth, we bring them forward and we do heal. We do heal. I think that systemically we've been not so much not aware, but we've been wanting, like I always put it to the idea of you bump your knee and you say, you're okay, keep going. So that knee gets calloused, right? And we never address the callus that's growing and growing. And finally, either it rips off or we explode. And that's what happens sometimes to our youth. Boosting. It says, boosting for Celestino. How can we approach our local communities with schools with suggestions of native-based ag? For too long have our standard stress colonization, i.e. mission system, being part of being a fourth grader. Why can't we make the native way the way? So how can we do that? How can we bring back the fourth grade standard of, understanding this? Yeah, but I think that someone wanted Alfred to answer that.
Yeah, I think that it comes down to the food system in and of itself. We have the California Department of Food and Agriculture, who's putting out a lot of grants, the USDA putting out a lot of grants, but they need to make sure that they're hiring and supporting organizations that represent the neighborhoods that they're in. And so we need to make sure that the funding is being spread out so that the native indigenous organizations are being funded to go into the schools and put these programs in place, working with the communities. And particularly, one of our farms is right across the street from one of the lowest scoring schools in our district, an elementary school. And that school is overly represented of native, indigenous, and people of color. So what we have to do is we have to make sure that it's not a competition between organizations, large organizations that have grant writers, other technical assistant, capital in place so that they can go after the grants and be first in line to get the support. There needs to be technical support in place and kind of like wrap around so that other organizations can get this funding, build a program, hire staff to go into the schools and make sure that native indigenous people are being represented.
Thank you.
So right on that, so that's why we put Utah together for. It's United Tribes of California for these. So we will provide those resources. Also going back to the youth, how do we, guide these youth? So Utah is, well, if you don't give those kids somewhere to go, okay, especially Native American kids, because they're drawn to a tribe. So all gangs it's just a tribe. And so they will fall into a tribe, whether we like it or not. And so we already know that's embedded in us as an indigenous people, is to gravitate to a tribe. And so our native people are being called Mexicanos, so they fall into these gangs, Norteños, Sureños, and all these other gangs. And we have to grab them and let them know, hey, these are your traditions. This is who you are. We awaken them in their ways by teaching them and guiding them and bringing them so they know the elders and give them that guideline and that pathway to be doing those things. So that's what Utah is about, and that's what it's going to be about, to grab all of these youngsters and to put them in positions to where they're an example and they're being guided by the elders and the people around to make sure that they're doing good and lifting them up and bringing that thing full circle.
So Waylon and Gilly, I know that Waylon, you do a wonderful job every week. Thursdays, you have different cultural classes. Mm-hmm. How do you feel that youth respond to those classes when they're first coming in?
Oh, they at first they're a little shy, but once they get around other youth, and it's not just for youth, but we have different things. So we have youth programs, we got elder programs, we have regular classes. But the youth, it's proven, and they did a lot of studies on this. And if you look at tribal TANFs and different tribal, it's kind of how we're healing historical trauma, is by connecting our youth back to the cultural. And so you're seeing improvement at home with their attitudes, grades, their social skills. It's really making a difference on healing some of that historical trauma that as Indigenous people we face.
Thank you. Sophia, thank you so much it says so much knowledge. Thank you all. Native entomology would be a good grant. City of Sacramento just adopted an official land acknowledgement. And Fatima put that in there. Fatima said a shout out to Alfred. She's in your neighborhood. Reach out to each other and work with each other. I hope that can happen. It says, I want to make sure I get everybody's questions. Oh, here it goes. Waylon, these environmental issues that says heat from fires are changing the world, weather patterns. Yes, that's definitely an issue that we're facing. And we will have to look at that, the way that the weather changes, how it's going to affect our fires. And before we used to say it's a fire season. Fire season's all the time now. That's something that we didn't have to deal with before. I don't know if it's so much political or environmental, but we're up for the challenge. And that's another conversation. It says naturally. It says we are losing our natural meats and plants that are genetically appropriated for us. Salmon and trout are stocked and aren't as healthy. How can these forests play a part in that aspect? Well, bringing the narrative, right? Bringing that understanding and bringing that knowledge out to the people, because the truth is our foods had been affected in the 1970s with Monsanto coming out and creating GMOs. That was part of how our food was genetically modified. They used the premise of saying that we didn't have enough food when we had enough food, and now we're not having enough food, and we're really dealing with how it's affecting us. Can we go to any other questions? And feel free to raise your hand or unmute right now. At this point, we've got about 4 more minutes, and then we're going to wrap up with Waylon singing a beautiful song for us to close. Yes, we're excited. If I told you, you wouldn't have done it. So. It says so much knowledge. Thank you so much for your contribution in this discussion. I have been enjoying it so much. I look forward to working with you all one way or another. I am a chef, teacher, and program developer for Edible Schoolyards project in Stockton. Aisha, thank you, Aisha. We are going to be able to save this chat, I hope, and we'll be able to reach back to you and circle back. We are going to include the emails of most of our folks on here. I don't know if maybe Evelyn can plug those in for us.
For the Stockton person, there's right across the street from the Stockton Tribal TANF. I can't exactly remember what they call it, but it's maybe the Native American Heritage Club. But they do a lot of youth stuff there too. That'd be a good place to tie in at if you're interested.
There you go. We will also have ending. We're going to be ending with a raffle. Yeah. Well, you know what? That's great. Thank you so much. You're enlightening us. I really enjoyed this conversation. More power to people. And thank you for all the wisdom and knowledge given to us by these beautiful people. Well, you're the beautiful people because you're engaging with us. And that's what we want. We want to have those opportunities to be able to engage and have discussions and giving us a space, right? We want to thank our organizer today, Catholic Charities, for inviting all the speakers today and bringing forth some of the great discussions that we had today. I want to thank you all for being part of this. I know that this narrative is not going to stop here. Alfred, it's not going to stop here. We're going to come visit you. We're going to come out there. There's 3sisters.org that's out in Sacramento, bringing and elevating the narrative for the Native people. And I think that it's important for us to recognize again that there were no borders. And this is all our land, and we need to be respectful of the land, respectful of the ways, and learn from each other, be inclusive with each other. Thank you so much to all our panelists, all our speakers, all the people that were here today. Waylon, we changed your name. We made sure that it was spelled correctly. Thank you so much. Kayla, Alfred, Joe Rios. And for our first panel, we want to thank all of our panelists that were out there. Let's come back, circle back, circle back. And just you all for being here, taking the time out of your day to be part of something so important to us. Bringing the narrative back to environmental justice. The PACE participants that were here, thank you so much. And we are going to do a quick raffle, and then we're going to close with Waylon singing us out. And thank you very much. Go ahead, raffle time. Who's going to be the winner? Let's see who's going to be the winner. Tick, tick, tock. And we're raffling. We're moving.
All right, so we're going to have the raffle going on. Jonathan's going to set that up. But again, I would definitely like to make sure that we thank you all the participants, all the panelists for having their time set aside for us to share their knowledge. I think it's been wonderful. I think all the panelists did a great job, great information. We really appreciate it here at Catholic Charities.
Here it goes. Where's that? Keep going, and it's going to stop on Barbara Bourne. You can come off the, you're the mute, Barbara. Tell us something so special about today. What did you learn today? She can't? Okay. Thank you so much. Next, and do we have another raffle, or is that it for today?
I'll make sure she's on. One more.
We have to make sure she's on. If she's not on, you have to be present to win. Is she on? Okay, she's on. On, Barbara says. And then we have Mike.
Mike has a video.
Mike, are you on? Unmute, Mike. We got a few more minutes. All right, thank you so much. Well, let's have our elder walk us out with a few words, and then Waylon will sing us a song. So thank you.
Just want to thank every one of you for the time that you took to engage. All of us engage in this discussion, and we send you with all our blessings from all the various tribes, and we hope that your Christmas vacation, your Christmas time with friends and family is full of joy and fulfillment, and have a great holiday. Keep us in your mind. Keep thinking about ways that we can expand and grow together and work together. I hope there's a way they can reach out to us.
There is.
Okay.
Well, I'll have to follow up with you. You already know.
Okay, wonderful. And blessings to all of you. Blessings to all of you, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Fatima. Thank you so much. Alfred, I just feel like you want to say one thing. Go ahead, Alfred. Say what you got to say, because I know you're chomping at the bit.
No, I just wanted to, make sure uplift Native Indigenous youth and knowledge and wisdom. Not just today, but every day, so that we don't celebrate this Native Heritage Month. We celebrate, every day that we're alive when we open our two eyes and first gifts in the morning. So thank you all for being able to participate and share a few words and face with you guys today.
Thank you. We thank our creator for this wonderful opportunity. Kayla, one last word. What would you like to say to those people out there? And I don't know.
Just say thank you.
Thank you for coming and connect with us. We're always open to connecting with people and just being here in general.
Well, this will be the beginning of much more Zoom, so get used to it. We're going to be doing a lot of them. Go ahead.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. Appreciate the time that you've given us. Again, UTAC is willing to work with you guys to make things happen for.
Agradecemos a los organizadores por haber.
Thank you, Hanan. Thank you so much. I hope we got your questions. And if we didn't get to them, again, please just send us an email. My email will be included in the chat, and you can reach me directly, and I'll be glad to forward that to you. And we're looking forward to more opportunities to have those discussions, and we'll give it away to Waylon. Thank you, Waylon.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And well, as our elder said, have a good holidays and stay safe. And hopefully we all see each other the new year and start building on these relationships. So I'll sing a prayer song, and then we'll close it out on our end. Yeah. Okay. Treme bana mayen yoketsa hoyaka 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 chemne bana mayen yoketa hoyaka 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 chemne bana mayen yoketa hoyaka 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 chemne bana mayen yoketa hoyaka 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 hoyaka. Oh, I am late.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining.
So again, thank you all for joining. Thank you for participating. We again like to thank the panelists and everyone who's put their time and effort into doing this. And I especially would like to have a shout out to my staff, the Catholic Charities Environmental Justice Program, Martha, Jonathan, Melissa, Evelyn. You guys did a fantastic job. I couldn't be more prouder of you all. Thank you so much for everything you do, for fighting this fight, for reaching out and trying to change California, change us as a people and how we look at each other and how we treat our Mother Earth and how we treat our planet. And hopefully this will resonate down to our younger generation so that environmental justice is not something new that they need to learn, it's something they practice from early on. Again, thank you all. May you guys have a blessed week and blessed holiday season. And if there are any questions, this presentation will be available through email, and we will be sending it out. But again, thank you all. Thank you for the job you do. Thank you for fighting the fight. And thank you for helping out our community.
Thank you, Alfred. Thank you so much. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you, Hector.
Bro.
Está agradeciendo también, Marta, a todos.